Chapter 1144. Isn't this my little friend Xiaoqin? Why are you hiding here? This old man wanted to have a drink or two with you. An old man's voice came from not far away. Xiaoqin turned his head and saw Jia Jinyan holding a wine glass in his hand and walking toward him with a smile. Behind him were two young men. "Hello, old man." Xiaoqin greeted him politely and clinked glasses with Jia Jinyan. When he drained his glass, he felt that something was wrong. Putting down the glass, Xiaoqin looked behind Jia Jinyan and saw the two young men. One of the young men was Tang Qianling. When Xiaoqin took a closer look, he found that this guy was faintly emitting a black mist that shrouded his whole body. It looked a little strange and gloomy. That was why Xiaoqin felt that something was wrong. However, this black fog was extremely thin and faint. The surrounding people were very calm and no one noticed it. Only Xiaoqin, who had an outstanding spiritual sense, noticed it at a glance. As for the other young man, he looked more normal. His looks were not bad and he was dressed like a dog. He smiled at Xiaoqin, looking more amiable. However, there was not a hint of a smile in his eyes. They were extremely cold. "Come, Xiaoqin, my little friend, let me introduce you to these two young up-and-coming talents." Jia Jinyan smiled and turned around to let the two people behind him stand in front of Xiaoqin. Xiaoqin raised his eyebrows. Was Jia Jinyan trying to build a network for him? This is Tang Qianling. He is the heir of the Tang family in the inner martial arts world. He is also the most outstanding one among the third generation of the Tang family. Jia Jinyan introduced Tang Qianling to Xiaoqin. Xiaoqin replied with an "oh," and looked at Tang Qianling with a faint smile. He was mainly studying the black mist emitted from his body. Tang Qianling's expression was a little distorted, but he still pretended to be calm and nodded. Jia Jinyan didn't pay much attention to it. After introducing Tang Qianling, he pointed to another young man and said, "This is Yu Dongxing, my little friend. He is the heir of the Yu family. Not only is he powerful, he also has a strong business mind. He can manage the Yu family well at such a young age. He is indeed a young talent." Yu Dongxing didn't know much about Xiaoqin. After hearing Jia Jinyan praise him so much, he was very pleased and didn't bother to greet him. He just pulled the corner of his mouth and pretended that he had just smiled. "Hee, the three of you are all young people. There must be more topics to talk about when you are together. I'm just being a middleman. I hope you won't blame me for being too presumptuous." After Jia Jinyan finished his introduction, none of the three people said anything. Only then did he feel that something was wrong. Fortunately, as the clan leader, he was shrewd with age. He immediately added a sentence to smooth things over. Although the three big families of the inner martial arts world seemed to be harmonious on the surface, the competition was very fierce in the dark. This time, Jia Jinyan introduced Tang Qianling and Yu Dongxing to Xiaoqin in order to help Xiaoqin expand his network. He hoped that Xiaoqin would remember this favor. Jia Jinyan valued Xiaoqin's unpredictable ability very much. He hoped that Xiaoqin could give Jia Musen more help. That was why he made such a move. It was also for the sake of planning for the future. He had no other choice. Actually, Jia Jinyan was very clear that a cultivator with such outstanding ability like Xiaoqin definitely had his own ideas. He wouldn't always stay by Jia Musen's side to assist him. Moreover, Xiaoqin had already told him that sooner or later he would go look for his father. It was even more impossible for him to stay with the Jia family forever. Jia Jinyan only hoped that if Jia Musen were to encounter any trouble in the future, Xiaoqin would be able to give him a few words of advice or lend him a hand. He would be perfectly satisfied. In order to pave the way for Jia Musen, Jia Jinyan thought about it. He didn't expect to be able to use gold, silver, or jewelry to keep Xiaoqin in the Jia family. After thinking about it, he could only use the Jia family's influence in the inner martial arts world to make some preparations for Xiaoqin in advance. Of course not. Thank you, clan leader, for your enthusiasm. Xiaoqin will remember it in his heart. Xiaoqin naturally knew what Jia Jinyan meant. He didn't want to go against his good intentions, so he casually replied. He turned around and nodded in a neither servile nor overbearing manner. He lightly said, "Young Master Tang, young Master Yu, it's a pleasure to meet you." When Jia Jinyan saw that Xiaoqin appreciated his kindness, he felt deeply gratified. He smiled and stood to the side. Yu Dongxing quickly responded with a smile. Although he didn't have a good impression of Xiaoqin, Jia Jinyan was still at the side. No matter what, he had to put on an act. Tang Qianling also reluctantly nodded and took it as a greeting. Xiaoqin didn't take their actions to heart. He only glanced at Tang Qianling indifferently. Suddenly he said with a surprised expression, "Aya, it's incredible. It's incredible. Young Master Tang, a divine light shot out from the top of your head. Did you know that? Tang Qianling suddenly froze. Why did Xiao Chen's words sound so familiar? Where did I hear it? But I couldn't remember it at the moment. And why did this kid suddenly praise me so much? Could it be that he has some ulterior motives? Jia Jinyan and Yu Dongxing also looked at each other in astonishment. They both felt that Xiao Chen was a bit strange. Jia Jinyan felt that Xiao Chen's words were inexplicable. It didn't seem right to say that he was praising him. But it didn't seem like he was mocking him. What was Xiao Chen trying to do? Yu Dongxing, on the other hand, was a little displeased in his heart. Jia Jinyan had clearly introduced the two of them to Xiao Chen just now, yet this brat only praised Tang Qianling and ignored him. Wasn't he a little too condescending? Looking at Tang Qianling's dumbfounded expression, Xiao Chen smiled and said, "Tiske, I didn't expect you to have such a strong physique at such a young age. You are simply a rare cultivation genius. If one day you accidentally open up the conception and governing vessels, wouldn't you be like a dragon that soars to the heavens?" I say, Xiao Chen, did you take the wrong medicine? Tang Qianling stared at Xiao Chen suspiciously. Xiao Chen suddenly approached Tang Qianling and said in a low voice, "How is your cultivation of the 5 poisons secret manual? I see that your face is glowing with pride. Could it be that you really succeeded in cultivating this useless thing?" Who said it's useless? Tang Qianling's expression changed and immediately retorted, "After I cultivated the second half of the manual, my level increased by several levels. Now I'm about to finish cultivating." Before he could finish speaking, Tang Qianling suddenly realized that he had let the cat out of the bag. He immediately covered his mouth and widened his eyes vigilantly, staring at Xiao Chen. He was afraid that Xiao Chen would be tempted and come to snatch his secret manual. Chapter 1145. Oh, so that's how it is. Xiao Chen curled his lips and rolled his eyes thoughtfully. Suddenly he stood up straight and didn't bother with Tang Qianling anymore. Instead he turned to Jia Jinyan and said, "I'm sorry, Patriarch Jia. I suddenly remembered that I still have some important things to do. Please forgive me for taking my leave first. I'll drink with you another day. Goodbye." "No problem, Xiao Chen, my little friend. It's already my great honor for you to come to this banquet. Hurry up and do your thing." Jia Jinyan smiled and patted Xiao Chen's shoulder. Jia Jinyan didn't blame Xiao Chen at all. He had already keenly felt that Xiao Chen and Tang Qianling didn't seem to get along. There might be some conflicts between the two, so he didn't force him to stay. After watching Xiao Chen leave, Jia Jinyan didn't have any interest in continuing to chat with Tang Qianling and Yu Dongxing. He casually made up an excuse and left the two to receive other distinguished guests. Since Xiao Chen hated Tang Qianling, Jia Jinyan felt that there was no need to feign civility with him. Anyway, the family would be handed over to Jia Muzhen to take care of in the future. These grudges and entanglements would be solved by the younger generation. In fact, Jia Jinyan was already secretly regretting that he was too rash in his matchmaking this time. He should have asked Xiao Chen's attitude in advance. He only hoped that Xiao Chen wouldn't blame him because of this matter. Although they were very unhappy with Jia Jinyan's indifferent attitude, Tang Qianling and Yu Dongxing didn't dare to act rashly. After all, they were now in the Jia family's territory. They could only secretly endure and pretend that nothing had happened. Yu Dongxing was also very straightforward. He directly turned around and plunged into the crowd, talking loudly with people. Tang Qianling gloomily stared at Xiao Chen's back. He was a little puzzled. What's going on with this kid? After asking so many questions, Tang Qianling thought that Xiao Chen wanted to rob him of the 5 poisons secret book. In the end, after asking the question, he just patted his butt and left, causing him to be vigilant for so long in vain. After much consideration, Tang Qianling could only assume that Xiao Chen was afraid that the honor mystic realm was about to open. It was unwise for him to snatch his secret manuals and become enemies with the Tang family. Therefore Xiao Chen chose to give up and did not dare to kill him. Tang Qianling only calmed down after thinking that he had figured it out. He sneered inwardly, "Xiao Chen, oh Xiao Chen, don't think that you're so powerful. Wait until I master the 5 poison secret manual, let's see if you still dare to challenge me." Xiao Chen naturally didn't know about Tang Qianling's unspoken criticism. He took the girls to eat around the banquet. After eating and drinking to their heart's content, he saw that Jia Muzhen was still entertaining the VIPs, so he greeted him and indicated that he would be leaving first. Jia Muzhen knew that Xiao Chen had just returned and must be tired, so he didn't ask them to stay and sent them out. Xiao Chen walked out with the girls, chatting and laughing. Tian Souring suddenly thought of something and asked Xiao Chen, "Hubby Xiao Chen, what were you talking about with that bastard Tang Qianling just now?" Sister Souring thought that you were going to beat him up in public. Unfortunately, I didn't get to see the show. After saying that, Tian Souring waved her little fist. She felt that she had beaten Tang Qianling too hastily and it wasn't satisfying enough. Therefore, she wanted to find another opportunity to teach this guy a lesson and embarrass him again. Isn't it easy to beat that guy up? Anytime. Xiaoqun laughed and rubbed Tian Souring's head. But this time I still have to give some face to Jiao Muzin and the Jiao family's patriarch. It's not good to mess around at the Jiao family's banquet. Alright, next time Sister Souring will make him suffer a little more. Otherwise, it will be hard to quell the anger that I have accumulated from being bullied by him for so many years. Tian Souring pouted and snorted. By the way, Menjing, did you see Tang Qianling just now? Did you notice anything? Xiaoqun thought that beating up Tang Qianling was secondary. The key was to figure out what the black fog on his body was. No. I was busy eating. Who had the time to care about him? There were also a few rascals who wanted to strike up a conversation, but they were all sent away by me and Ling. Cheng Menjing asked curiously. Yes. It's all thanks to Menjing and Sister Ling. Ling Qianxue nodded. Seeing that Xiaoqun was frowning slightly, she asked curiously, What's wrong, Xiaoqun? Is there a problem with Tang Qianling? Xiaoqun nodded and explained, Just now, I realized that there was a vicious aura lingering around his body. To be precise, there was a kind of black fog surrounding him. But I'm not too sure about the specifics, so I talked to him a little more. My initial guess is that it should be because he has cultivated the 5 Poisons secret manual. Tian Souring, who was originally jumping up and down, was startled. She thought for a moment and asked doubtfully, It can't be. Sister Souring also saw him just now. Why didn't I notice the black fog you were talking about? Maybe your cultivation level is too low, so you couldn't see the black fog on his body. Xiaoqun casually lied. He had already noticed it just now. The others also didn't see the black fog on Tang Qianling's body. It was probably because he was a cultivator and his divine sense was extraordinary that he could see it. He wanted to ask Cheng Menjing if she had seen it or not, but unfortunately, the young lady only cared about eating and didn't see anything. Tian Souring was even more nervous now. She asked carefully, Then I have also cultivated the 5 Poisons secret manual. Will I become like him in the future? Seeing that Xiaoqun was so reasonable, Tian Souring couldn't help but feel regretful. If he had known this would happen, he wouldn't have cultivated the 5 Poisons secret manual. What if he became like Tang Qianling in the future and emitted black fog all over his body? Although it looked awesome, it would be too ugly, wouldn't it? Xiaoqun's husband would definitely hate him. Xiaoqun comforted Tian Souring, It's okay. It seems that Tang Qianling only emitted the black fog after cultivating the second half of the 5 Poisons secret manual. You should have only cultivated part of the 5 Poisons secret manual, right? Tang Qianling probably wouldn't be so kind as to give you the whole secret manual, so it should be okay. Speaking up to this point, Xiaoqun turned his head and looked at Tang Tang beside him. Although her eyes were empty and her expression was confused, her body was still very clean. There was no black fog lingering around her. Tang Tang had also cultivated the 5 Poisons secret manual. Her body also didn't emit black fog. Therefore, Xiaoqun speculated that the content of her cultivation should be similar to Tian Souring's. Oh, that's great. Sister Souring doesn't want to become like Tang Qianling. When that time comes, I'll be black and swarthy like a ghost. Tian Souring was relieved and patted her chest. Although she also yearned for powerful strength, a girl's love for beauty still prevailed. If the price to pay was too high, she would rather not have this kind of strength. After chatting for a while, they had already walked to the entrance of Jiao Muzin's courtyard. Originally, Xiaoqun and Cheng Menjing should be in one room, and little Chick Xing should go to another room. However, as Xiaoqun walked, he realized that little Chick Xing had been following behind him. Chapter 1146. Young Master Ladyboy, why are you following us? Do you want to cultivate with us? Xiaoqun stopped in front of the door and turned around to tease her. Damn you, Xiaoqun, who wants to cultivate with you? Little girl Xing glared at him hatefully. When she saw the gazes of the other girls turn to look at her, she suddenly felt a little nervous and quickly added, I have something to discuss with you. It's about Awakening Heaven Gate. Oh sure. Xiaoqun nodded and let Cheng Menjing and the others enter the room. He walked 2 steps out and came to the garden with little girl Xing. Then he asked, What's the matter? What does Awakening Heaven Gate want to do this time? That's not it. Didn't Sidu Qitian ask me to investigate your skill before? It's already been a few days. Do you think I should give the sect a call and make a routine report? I'm also afraid that they will be suspicious. Little girl Xing asked hesitantly. She had been hesitating for a few days. Ever since she came out from Awakening Heaven Gate, she had been wondering if she should contact Elder Sunday. However, because of the unpleasant things that had happened before, she didn't know what to say when she called. After thinking about it, she decided to ask Xiao Chen's opinion first. Ever since she found out that Awakening Heaven Gate used living people for experiments to create biohuman puppets, little girl Xing's impression of Awakening Heaven Gate had plummeted. Previously, she had heard it from others and still had some doubts. When she heard Situ Qitian personally admit it, her whole person received a strong impact. At this time, her feelings for Awakening Heaven Gate could be said to be love and hate. It was extremely complicated. She was even more puzzled and disgusted with Situ Qitian, the sect leader, so she was too lazy to use honorifics and simply called him by his name. Oh. Xiao Chen pondered for a moment and nodded. Okay, you can give Sun a reply and continue to help me inquire about the information of the control potion. I'll tell them that you didn't manage to get the information, so you want to use it to exchange for the secret of my skill. Xiao Chen didn't care about Qi Tianmen's suspicion. He just wanted to get the information of the potion first and then detoxify Tang Tang. The Elder Heaven Ancestor said that the longer this potion existed in the body, the more harmful it would be to the body. He couldn't delay it any longer. Little Xing replied with an "oh," and lowered her head to take out her phone. Xiao Chen suddenly thought of something and added, "But you have to be careful when you make the report. I'm guessing that they're wary of you and think that you're under my control. That's why you called them." Little Xing shrugged non-committally and took out her new cell phone. Xiao Chen glanced at it and almost burst out laughing. He pointed at her cell phone and teased, "I say, young master transvestite, isn't your cell phone a little too shiny and cute? This is completely inconsistent with your character." "Tsk, what do you know? I like this kind of cell phone, can't I?" Little Xing glared at Xiao Chen fiercely, lowered her head and opened up her contact list, looking for Elder Sun's number. Xiao Chen smiled but didn't say anything. He didn't expect that Little Xing, who usually looked serious, was like an innocent little girl. But this was normal, girls should be like this. Little Xing had already found the number. She pressed the call button and made a shushing gesture to Xiao Chen. "Shh. Don't say anything, it'll be troublesome if we get exposed later." On the other side, Elder Sun picked up his cell phone and looked at Little Xing's name on the screen. He frowned and didn't know whether he should answer the call or not. After a moment of silence, Elder Sun pressed the button to answer the call. He then said in a calm tone, "Little Xing, how's the mission? Did you find out about Xiao Chen's skill?" Reporting to Elder Sun, "I tried asking a few times in the past few days, but Xiao Chen has always been very cautious. He didn't tell me any secrets about his skill." Little Xing's voice was a little weak, but she still pretended to be calm and continued, "I thought about it. If you can help me get the information about the medicine from last time, I might be able to use it as a bargaining chip to make a deal with him." This was the first time Little Xing reported to the sect after she left with Xiao Chen. So she didn't have much confidence. She was a little nervous and her palms were sweating. "Is that so?" Elder Sun didn't immediately agree to Little Xing's request. He first dragged out his voice as if he was thinking, then suddenly asked, "Little Xing, do you remember the first mission you accepted?" "I remember. It was an enemy sect that came to challenge the sect. I defeated all 11 of them and they retreated with their tails between their legs." Little Xing was stunned for a moment, then subconsciously replied, "When is sect leader Situ's birthday? Do you still remember who the founder of the Open Heaven Gate was? Is your room on the left or right side of the Open Heaven Gate? Also?" Elder Sun immediately asked a series of questions. He didn't even seem to be out of breath. "Sect leader Situ's birthday is?" Little Xing already understood the purpose of Elder Sun's questions. It was obvious that he was testing to see if she was under Xiao Chen's control when she made the call. She immediately relaxed and said the correct answer unhurriedly. Then she pretended to be anxious and asked, "Elder Sun, why are you suddenly asking me these questions? Did something big happen in the sect? Should I hurry back?" No need. It's nothing. I was just asking casually. Old people have bad memories. Important things should be mentioned more often." Little Xing answered all the questions correctly. Elder Sun was naturally very satisfied. However, he still cursed in his heart, what kind of big thing could happen in the Open Heaven Gate? Isn't the most troublesome person you are? If it wasn't for the fact that you were inexplicably controlled by Xiao Chen, I wouldn't have wasted so much time asking so many questions to test you. So it's like that. Little Xing nodded her head and secretly heaved a sigh of relief. She couldn't help but admire Xiao Chen. He actually guessed Elder Sun's possible reaction. Grumbling was one thing, but Elder Sun was certain that little chick Xing wasn't being controlled, so he finally let his guard down. Recalling her earlier suggestion, he said coldly, I definitely can't give you the information on those medicines. However, I can explain to you the effects of the medicines or some other information in this area. You can use these things to negotiate with Xiao Chen. Little Xing raised her head and glanced at Xiao Chen. Xiao Chen's divine sense was extraordinary. He could actually hear the contents of their conversation clearly. He nodded slightly at Little Xing. Before Little Xing could agree, Elder Sun suddenly asked, That's right. Why does Xiao Chen want this information so badly? Chapter 1147. Here's the thing. There's a woman named Tang Tang around Xiao Chen. Someone wanted to control her, so they injected her with the medicine developed by our sect, causing her to become a little dull. Xiao Chen wanted to restore her to her original state, so he asked me to steal the information, Xingqik explained. Tang Tang. Elder Sun repeated the name several times, but he had no recollection of it in his mind. Lady Xing suddenly had a flash of inspiration and added, If the information is not enough, you can also give me the antidote for this drug, and I will pass it to Xiao Chen. This way I can gain his trust and from there I can get more information about him. Xiao Chen smiled bitterly and secretly shook his head. This girl was still too naive. He didn't even want to give her the information, so how could he give her the antidote? I can't give you the antidote either. Sure enough, Elder Sun immediately refused and then said, But I can help you find out what kind of medicine this Tang Tang was injected with, and then I will tell you how to cure it. Well, okay then. Tang Tang is controlled through a token, so it should be easy to find. Xingqik had no choice but to describe the token to see if Elder Sun could remember it. Before Xing Las could finish her sentence, Elder Sun suddenly thought of something and interrupted her. Wait. The token you mentioned just now, is it completely black and made of ebony? Is there our Awakening Sect's logo on the top of the token? Yes. It's exactly as you said. You remember it? Xingqik quickly replied. That's a lot easier. I was wondering why I couldn't remember this person's name, so that's it. Elder Sun slapped his thigh and connected the dots. The medicine you're talking about is the first generation of medicine developed by Awakening Sect. After taking the medicine, it is controlled through the token. At that time we gave this medicine to the 3 families to test. I guess that girl was the one they found. Yes, it should be the Tang family's test subject, and then she was saved by Xiao Chen. But he didn't seem to know how to control Tang Tang, so he let her be in a daze every day. Xingqik also said in a tone of sudden realization. Tieske, what does he know? This kind of medicine requires the initiator to use a certain method to make the user obey the order through the token. He's not the controller, so of course he doesn't know. Elder Sun snorted disdainfully. Then, with a hint of pride, he said, Fortunately, we have already considered this. Everyone who has consumed the potion, although their minds will be controlled, they will still retain the consciousness to cultivate on their own. Therefore, even if no one is controlling them, they will still cultivate on their own, ensuring that their strength will not regress. So that's how it is. Then what's the cure for this kind of drug? Little Lady Xing asked with a frown. This Elder Sun blabbered on for so long, but he still didn't get to the point. Oh, this drug was developed in a hurry, so there was no antidote. Elder Sun's first sentence caused Lady Xing's and Xiao Chen's expressions to change at the same time. However, Elder Sun immediately added, However, we later discovered that this medicine is only effective on cultivators below the honorable level. If the person being controlled has reached the honorable level, the medicine will no longer be effective. Therefore, our Awakening Heaven sect developed the second generation of cyborgs. They are also effective on honorables and can be used from a distance. Elder Sun's voice stopped abruptly. He suddenly realized that he had said too much. Okay, that's all I can tell you. Elder Sun immediately stopped and changed the topic. Hurry up and exchange for Xiao Chen's secret. Don't fail again this time. Only an honorable level master can automatically remove it. Is there no other way? Little Lady Xing was anxious and asked repeatedly. However, before she could finish, she heard a beep-beep sound from the other end of the phone. Obviously, Elder Sun had hung up the phone. Little Lady Xing was so angry that she almost smashed the phone. What the hell is this Elder Sun doing? What's the use of giving this little information? What Xiao Chen wanted was a solution, but there was no antidote at the moment. He could only let Tang Tang advance to the honorable level. How was that possible? This was simply inexplicable. Looking at little Lady Xing's furrowed brows and angry face, Xiao Chen felt a little helpless. Although he didn't know if Elder Sun was just making excuses when he said there was no antidote, the possibility of getting the antidote at the moment was not very high. It was just that rashly wanting Tang Tang to advance to the honorable level was not that easy. Xiao Chen, I'm sorry. I wasn't able to get the antidote from Elder Sunday. It seems that you have to think of another way. Little Lady Xing put down the phone and sighed. Looking at Xiao Chen's serious expression, she felt a little guilty in her heart. It's all Open Heaven sect's fault. They actually researched such a harmful drug when they had nothing better to do. Moreover, they want me to work like a slave for this despicable sect and help them harm others. I actually didn't realize this before. I must have been blind. It's okay. This can't be blamed on you. I will think of another way. Xiao Chen patted little Lady Xing's shoulder and shrugged. Isn't it just advancing to the honorable level? For me it's a piece of cake. You don't have to comfort me. This is cultivation. It's not that easy. Little Lady Xing did not believe what Xiao Chen said at all. She was still depressed. Xiao Chen smiled and said, "Have you forgotten? The honorable secret realm is about to open. When that time comes I will bring Tang Tang along. It won't take long for her to become an honorable level master. But it's not as easy as you think it is to become an honorable level master," little Lady Xing said worriedly. "Although I haven't been to the honorable secret realm myself, I heard that many talented martial kings and demon kings failed to come out after entering the secret realm. Some of them are still in the secret realm to this day. Are you sure you want to bring Tang Tang to risk her life? Don't worry. I will prepare everything in advance. I won't let Tang Tang encounter any danger." Xiao Chen looked very confident. For Xiao Chen, the number of spiritual jades was no longer a problem. He only needed to enter the honorable secret realm and find a secluded place to spend some time cultivating with Tang Tang. He believed that she would be able to improve her strength very quickly. However, just now, Xiao Chen suddenly remembered that he had another problem to solve before entering the secret realm. Tang Tang should be the same as Tian Suruan. She had only cultivated a portion of the 5 Poisons secret manual. This could be seen from the difference between the two women and Tang Qianling. They did not emit a black mist. Xiao Chen happened to have the complete handwritten copy of the 5 Poisons secret manual on him, as well as a pill that could assist in cultivation. Xiao Chen guessed that this pill should be the right medicine to remove the black fog from his body, the side effects of cultivation. Chapter 1148. Since he had to improve Tang Tang's strength now, he could let Tang Tang cultivate with him first and finish cultivating the entire 5 Poisons scripture. If he could improve Tang Tang to the great perfection of Demon King level 10, it would be easier for him to go to the Venerable Realm. Little Chick Xing didn't know what Xiao Chen was thinking. She thought of the many cultivators in Awakening Heaven sect who didn't manage to advance successfully and felt very uneasy. She bit her lower lip and asked, "Why don't I give Elder Sun another call and see if I can ask him for an antidote? There's no need for that. Since Sun doesn't know what's good for him, I'll make him pay sooner or later." Xiao Chen shook his head. He didn't want to see little Miss Xing begging for help, so he directly rejected her suggestion. But little Miss Xing wanted to argue, but Xiao Chen patted her head and said with a smile, "All right, go back to your room and rest first. You don't have to worry about Tang Tang. When she recovers, report to Awakening Gate, just make up a few random sources of skills. Say that I told you so you can explain yourself." All right. Little Miss Xing nodded and walked back to her room with Xiao Chen. The two of them walked to a fork in the road and little Miss Xing suddenly remembered something. Just as she was about to speak, she saw Xiao Chen walking in the direction of Tang Tang's room in a hurry. Little Miss Xing thought about it and gave up on the idea. She turned around and walked to her room, but she was stopped by Xiao Chen before she could go far. "Oh right, Xing Gongzi, when the Venerable Realm opens, go in with us." Xiao Chen stood far away and said with a smile, "Your current strength is too low. It's not enough. When the time comes I'll help you advance to the Venerable Realm. This way I'll have a good helper by my side in the future." Although Xiao Chen left in a hurry just now, he still saw little Miss Xing's hesitant expression from the corner of his eye. He thought for a moment and knew what she wanted to say. However, he felt guilty and didn't want to say more, so he took the initiative to invite her. "Really? You're not fooling me, are you?" Little girl Xing's eyes lit up. She felt a little flattered, but her happiness did not last for long before her face darkened again. But, going to the venerable realm requires 100 pieces of spirit jades. The spirit jades I saved up are still in the open heaven gate. I'm afraid I can't. Before little Miss Xing could finish, Xiaochen waved his hand and said, "Isn't it just 100 spiritual jades? I can just walk around Tianyu Jade Mine. Tianyu Jade Mine. I can get it. Jade Gongzi Jade. Little Miss Xing, who was originally very grateful, was instantly rendered speechless. She had painstakingly saved up a few years of spiritual jades. It was not easy for her to accumulate the amount, but in the end it was useless. Xiaochen, who used to look down on her, was now a big shot in the Jia family. Not to mention 100 spiritual jades, he could even go in and out of a high-grade spiritual jade mine freely. She was envious of him. However, when she thought about how she had tried to frame Xiaochen several times in the past, she didn't expect him to not care at all. He even took the initiative to bring her into the venerable secret realm and specially prepared spiritual jades for her. She was quite touched. Actually, from the looks of it, Xiaochen was pretty good. Not only was he powerful, but he also knew how to take care of others. This could be seen from how much he cared about Tang Tang. No wonder so many girls liked her. If she became his girlfriend, she would be very happy, wouldn't she? Young Master Xing, why are you so shameless? No, I have to be more reserved. How could I lower my status to chase after Xiaochen for 100 spiritual jades? That's too low. Plus he's a bad person. If he knows that I like him, he might make fun of me. Forget it, I'll observe him for a while. Xing Tianyu walked back to her room while thinking. Along the way she was absent-minded and blushed. This scene fell into Xiaochen's eyes. Xiaochen couldn't help but smile helplessly. This little girl was so strange. He didn't know what she was thinking. However, she was usually very strange. In any case, Xiaochen was already used to it and didn't pay it much attention. After walking into Cheng Menjing's room, Xiaochen briefly explained the reason and brought Tang Tang out. He was prepared to let Tang Tang cultivate the second half of the 5 Poisons secret manual at night. This was to prevent any accidents from happening. Standing in the garden, Xiaochen said softly to Tang Tang, "Tang Tang, let's go to another room to cultivate." Although her eyes were empty and her actions were dull, looking like a vegetable, Xiaochen still treated her as a normal person. Considering the danger of the 5 Poisons secret manual, Xiaochen was afraid that if he stayed with the other girls, there would be unpredictable situations. So he took Tang Tang to another unoccupied room in the yard. After entering the room and closing the door, Xiaochen supported Tang Tang and sat cross-legged on the ground. He first took out the 5 Poisons secret manual and roughly flipped through it. After confirming the position of the second half, he placed it on the ground in front of Tang Tang. Considering that if she directly cultivated the second half of the 5 Poisons secret manual, there might be a black fog problem. So, Xiaochen first took out the elixir he got from the ancient ruins and stuffed it into Tang Tang's mouth. Then he used his primordial qi to make her swallow it. After Tang Tang took the elixir, Xiaochen pushed the 5 Poisons secret manual in front of her. Tang Tang lowered her eyes and did not know whether she was looking at it or not. With Xiaochen's divine awareness, he could only feel that Tang Tang was cultivating. The way the aura flowed in her body should be the way of the 5 Poisons secret manual, but Xiaochen did not know to what extent she had cultivated it. In desperation, Xiaochen had to rely on his feelings and open the secret manual page by page. He let Tang Tang read while cultivating. Fortunately, his arm strength was amazing. Even if he held the secret manual for a whole day, he would not feel tired. After about 2 hours, Xiaochen had turned the entire secret manual. Tang Tang seemed to have finished her cultivation and began to adjust her breath. Xiaochen couldn't wait to feel Tang Tang's wrist pulse. He wanted to see if her strength had increased. But to his surprise, Tang Tang did not upgrade. She still maintained the original state and did not make any progress at all. No way. Is there a mistake in the secret manual? It should be impossible. Xiaochen took back the secret manual and looked through it. He was very surprised and said to himself. He had read the original version of the 5 Poisons secret manual before. Because of the ability of a cultivator, he had a photographic memory. So, Xiaochen had already remembered the original version in his heart. But when he flipped through the entire secret manual and compared it with the original secret manual in his mind, he did not find any mistakes. Chapter 1149. Xiaochen was a little puzzled. He didn't know what the problem was. Just when Xiaochen was puzzled, he found that the breath in Tang Tang's body suddenly flowed again. She began to cultivate again. Xiaoqin thought about it and simply stopped showing the secret manual to Tang Tang. Instead, he carefully observed her cultivation progress. After a round of cultivation, Xiaoqin finally found the problem. Although Tang Tang had no mind, she would continue to cultivate. However, the 5 poison secret manual that she cultivated was only the previous part, that was, the first half, and the second half that Xiaoqin had just read to her was not cultivated at all. Elder Heaven Ancestor, what the hell is going on? I have clearly shown the complete 5 poisons secret manual to Tang Tang. Why does she still only cultivate the first half and not the second half? Xiaoqin really had no way out. He could only try to ask the Elder Heaven Ancestor for help. Well, I have observed for a while and now I have an inference. Elder Heaven Ancestor carefully analyzed. Do you remember what Elder Sun said just now, that the medicine injected into Tang Tang will let her cultivate on her own? I remember. Xiaoqin nodded. I guess since Tang Tang was injected with the medicine, she will only cultivate the secret manual that she learned before her mind was controlled, that is, the first half of the 5 poisons secret manual, so that she will continue to cultivate in a cycle, and her strength will not regress. Elder Heaven Ancestor said his inference, but the second half, it must be because she has no mind now, so she doesn't know how to cultivate. This does make sense. Xiaoqin also admitted that Elder Heaven Ancestor's inference was very reasonable. He could not help but sigh and said, is there any other way to let her learn to cultivate the second half? Will it work with the method of dual cultivation? Looking at Tang Tang, who was still dull, Xiaoqin was a little discouraged. It seemed that he thought too simply. What you're learning isn't the 5 poison secret manual, what's the use of dual cultivation? Elder Heaven Ancestor scolded Xiaoqin and then said, but you can ask Tian Suruan to guide Tang Tang's cultivation. Didn't she also cultivate the first half of the secret manual? Let her guide Tang Tang to practice. After Tang Tang understands the second half of the script, she can stop. But there's only one elixir to restrain the poisonous gas, and I've already given it to Tang Tang. Without the elixir's help, if Soran cultivates the 5 poison secret book, will she become like Tang Qianling, emitting black mist all over her body? Xiaoqin frowned and asked uneasily. Although the method provided by the Elder Heaven Ancestor was not bad, it would be troublesome if Tian Soran was poisoned as well. Sour, she loved her appearance so much, so she would definitely not be able to accept her body emitting a black aura. Xiaoqin, are you stupid? I said let Tian Soran guide Tang Tang's cultivation, that is, let her assist the circulation of Tang Tang's aura. She doesn't cultivate the 5 poison secret book, how can she emit black aura? Elder Heaven Ancestor couldn't help but roll his eyes and said angrily. So that's it. That's great, I'll go and find Soren now. After listening to the words of the Elder Heaven Ancestor, Xiaoqin finally felt relieved. He immediately stood up, opened the door and walked to the room where Qing Minjing and the other girls lived. In the room, the soft breathing of girls rose and fell, and from time to time someone whispered, but he couldn't hear what they were saying. Tian Soran was wearing very sexy pajamas, lying on the bed and sleeping soundly. The corner of her mouth was slightly raised from time to time, as if she was dreaming a very wonderful scene. Soran. Soran. Suddenly, Tian Soran felt that her arm was gently patted a few times, and her dream was disturbed. She couldn't help but frown, murmured, turned over and fell asleep again. Soran, don't sleep, wake up. I have something important to talk to you about. Xiaoqin had no choice but to shake Tian Soran's body and whispered. Because the other girls were also sleeping soundly, Xiaoqin was afraid to accidentally wake them up, so he lowered his voice as much as possible. Husband Xiaoqin? Tian Soran struggled to open her eyes. She was a little unhappy to be woken up in her sleep, but when she saw Xiaoqin standing by the bed, her anger suddenly dissipated. It's me, are you awake? Xiaoqin saw that Tian Soran finally woke up, and immediately breathed a sigh of relief. Tian Soran half sat up, rubbed her sleepy eyes and asked confusedly, why don't you go to sleep? Is it because Jianghu is back and you have no place to sleep? Then let's sleep together. Sister Surin's bed is very spacious. No, I have an urgent matter and I need your help. Xiaoqin said with a bitter smile. What's the matter in the middle of the night? Sister Soran is having a sweet dream. When Tian Soran heard that she wasn't sleeping, she immediately pouted and couldn't help but grumble a few words, and then let out a big yawn. Tian Surin's movements were too big, and Xiaoqin subconsciously looked down at her sexy pajamas. Although all the places that should be covered were covered, and it wasn't considered revealing, It perfectly displayed her curvaceous figure, causing Xiao Chen to swallow his saliva. Ahem, it's hard to explain in a short time. Put on your coat first and come out with me. Xiao Chen was a little embarrassed and quickly turned his head to grab a coat from the clothes rack, and wrapped her body with it. Tian Soran blinked her eyes blankly, and when she looked down she realized where Xiao Chen was staring at. Her mind flashed and she suddenly guessed why he woke her up. That. Tian Soran quickly turned over and sat up and said shyly, "Husband Xiao Chen, there are too many people here and it doesn't seem very convenient. Let's find an empty room? And the weather outside is a little cold. Put on your coat and then come out with me." The light in the room was dim, and Xiao Chen didn't notice the expression on Tian Soran's face. After carefully helping her put on her coat, he quietly held her hand and left the room. Tian Soran was pulled out by Xiao Chen. She was a little excited but she also felt a little shy. She thought that Xiao Chen was finally going to have fun with her, but she didn't understand why Xiao Chen still wanted her to put on a coat. Could it be? Could it be that they were going to go outside and enjoy fun in the open air? Thinking of this, Tian Soran's adrenaline couldn't help but secrete quickly, and her face suddenly turned as red as a piece of cloth. She didn't expect that her first time would actually be with Xiao Chen in the wild. Usually she only watched those romantic action movies and there were such scenes. She never thought that she could try it one day. It was simply too exciting. After being led by Xiao Chen for a while with excitement, Tian Soran felt that something was wrong. Xiao Chen's husband didn't seem to be taking her in the direction of the wild. Chapter 1150. After leaving the room, Xiao Chen took Tian Soran's hand and walked for a while. Then they walked into another room not far away. What surprised Tian Soran the most was that Tang Tang was also there. "Honey Xiao Chen, your hobby is too unique, isn't it?" Tian Soran glanced at Tang Tang and said to Xiao Chen with a weird expression. "Ah, what hobby?" Xiao Chen looked back blankly. What is Tian Soran talking about? Why can't I understand it? I say, don't tell me you want the three of us to do it together? But Tang Tang hasn't returned to her original appearance. It's not fun to do it. Tian Soran shook her head with a puzzled look. Suddenly she realized something and said, "Oh, do you want Tang Tang to watch us do it? This is too embarrassing. Sister Soran can't do it." Oh, Xiao Chen almost spurted out. He was angry and funny at the same time. He stretched out his finger and gently poked Tian Soran's little head and said, "What are you thinking about? I brought you here not to do it with you, but to ask you to help Tang Tang." "Help? What kind of help?" Tian Soran's expression was a little surprised. "Don't tell me you want to do it with Tang Tang and then ask me to help guide you?" Xiao Chen couldn't help but roll his eyes and said helplessly, "I want you to guide Tang Tang to practice the second half of the 5 Poisons secret book. She doesn't know how to practice it herself. Only you can help her now." "So that's it?" Tian Soran curled her lips and muttered to herself. Sister Soran thought God had opened his eyes. Today I can finally leave the ranks of the first girls. I didn't expect to keep it up. It seems that sooner or later Sister Menjing and I will become 2 first girls. After saying that, Tian Soran sighed heavily. It seemed that she was very concerned about the fact that she was still a first girl. Well, don't let your imagination run wild. Xiao Chen bent down to pick up the 5 Poisons secret book on the ground. He knocked on Tian Soran's forehead and then handed it to her. This 5 Poisons secret book is the complete version. It's different from the one you've seen before. You should familiarize yourself with it first and then try to guide Tang Tang to practice it. Oh, okay. Tian Soran agreed in frustration. She opened the 5 Poisons secret book and began to read it carefully. Xiao Chen smiled and waited quietly. Although Tian Soran was a little, she was still a little. She was still a little. Soran smiled. After reading it a few times, Tian Wangshuo had a general grasp of the second half of the cultivation method. However, she suddenly thought of another problem. "Xiao Chen, honey, if Tang Tang successfully cultivates the complete 5 Poisons secret manual, won't she be like Tang Qianling with black gas all over her body?" Tian Wangshuan closed the secret manual and asked with a worried look. She recalled Xiao Chen's description of Tang Qianling's appearance when he was shrouded in a black mist. He seemed terrifying and she felt a lingering fear in her heart. "Don't worry about that," Xiao Chen said with a smile. "I've given her a special cultivation elixir in advance, so she shouldn't be emitting black gas. But now Tang Tang has become like this. Even if she finishes practicing the 5 Poisons secret book, what's the use? Don't tell me it can neutralize the poison in her body and wake her up? Tian Suruan raised another doubt. According to the information I've gathered, if she breaks through to the Martial Highness realm, she'll be able to make the medicine lose its effect completely. Therefore, I want her to cultivate the complete 5 poison secret manual in order to increase her strength. Xiao Qin rubbed his sore head and added, if she still can't break through by then, we'll cultivate together and work hard to make her a venerable one. Although Xiao Qin didn't have much confidence in his heart, this was the only way. Oh, that's fine. Tian Suruan agreed obediently and asked, Honey Xiao Qin, I finished reading the cultivation method in the secret book. What should I do next? Xiao Qin pointed at Tang Tang and said with a smile, it's very simple. You just need to circulate your aura according to the cultivation method of the 5 poisons secret manual to guide Tang Tang's cultivation as you usually do during dual cultivation. Okay. Tian Suruan nodded and sat cross-legged in front of Tang Tang, waiting for Xiao Qin's further instructions. You can begin now. Don't worry, I'll stand guard at the side to prevent you from going berserk. Xiao Qin sat down as well and patted Tian Sauer's head. He instructed solemnly, if you notice anything amiss in the process of guiding them, stop immediately and tell me. Do you understand? Tian Sauer's expression turned solemn. Okay, I got it. Tian Suruan took a deep breath, stretched out her hands and put them on Tang Tang's palms, assuming the posture of dual cultivation. Then, she slowly circulated the cultivation method and began to guide Tang Tang to cultivate the 5 poisons secret book. Since Tian Suruan had never taken the leading position in dual cultivation before, she was still a little nervous at the beginning. The circulation of her aura was very unfamiliar and unskilled, so the progress of cultivation was also very slow. After a period of time, Tian Suruan's mood gradually calmed down, and the circulation of her aura became more and more skilled. She didn't find anything wrong in the cultivation, so she tried to gradually speed up the cultivation and enter the right track of dual cultivation. Although Xiao Qin had no experience in this aspect, he could only sit quietly beside the 2 women and watch. He couldn't intervene and help, but he didn't dare to be careless. His spirit had been in a state of high concentration. His eyes were fixed on Tian Suruan and Tang Tang, ready to help them solve the crisis as long as there was something wrong. As time went by, Tian Suruan's aura circulation became more and more skilled, and the speed of guidance became faster and faster. Her aura and Tang Tang's had been integrated, and the cultivation became more and more convenient. Tian Suruan's face glowed. Thinking that this time she could finally help Xiao Qin's husband instead of being the one who held him back, she was very happy and became more focused in the dual cultivation. After a while, Tian Suruan felt a little heat in her dantian. She didn't care because she was concentrating on the dual cultivation. She just divided a little attention to check her body. Ah! Tian Suruan suddenly cried out in alarm. He immediately stopped circulating his mental cultivation method and withdrew his hands. His entire body was still in a state of shock as he sprawled on the ground, panting heavily. Just now she found that she didn't know when it started. She was also automatically cultivating the second half of the 5 poisons secret book. Xiao Qin was shocked by Tian Suruan's action. Seeing her lying on the ground trembling slightly, her little face pale, and her forehead covered with beads of sweat, he quickly took out a handkerchief from his arms and carefully wiped the sweat for her. Then he asked softly, Suruan, what's wrong with you? Why did you suddenly stop? I didn't find any signs of Qigong deviation. Chapter 1151. Xiao Qin hubby, Big Sister Sourness is doomed. Big Sister Sourness is going to be disfigured, boo-hoo. Tian Sourness had a look of horror on her face as she held onto Xiao Qin's hand and stuttered. As she spoke, tears welled up in her eyes. Don't be afraid, don't be afraid. I'm here. Sourness is fine. Xiao Qin comforted her and waited for Tian Sourness to calm down before asking softly, did something happen just now? Can you tell me? I suddenly realized that I've started cultivating the second half of the 5 poisons secret manual, and I can't stop even if I want to. As Tian Sourness spoke, she sounded like she was about to cry again. What should I do? Big Sister Sourness doesn't want to become like Tang Qianling, emitting black mist all over. That's too scary. Feeling a cold breeze on her back, Tian Sourness subconsciously reached out to touch it. She realized that her entire shirt was drenched in sweat. She couldn't help but pucker her lips. Finally, she couldn't help but burst into tears. Don't cry. Sourness, don't be too nervous. Let me check for you. Xiao Qin helped Tian Sourness wipe her tears. Then he released his divine sense to carefully observe her surroundings. However, he didn't discover any trace of black mist emitting from her body. He couldn't help but feel a little surprised. Hubby Xiaoqin, is my body starting to emit black mist? Is it very ugly? Tian's sourness saw the confusion on Xiaoqin's face as she asked while sobbing. No, your body isn't emitting any qi at all. Come, let me take your pulse. Xiaoqin shook his head and held Tian's sourness's hand. Then he injected a trace of yuan qi and circulated it through her body. After a round of inspection, Xiaoqin discovered that there were no other problems with Tian Wanchuan's body. Only his dantian seemed to be a little strange. He carefully sensed it again and could sense an aura lingering around his dantian. However, there were no other abnormalities. What made Xiaoqin a little puzzled was that this aura actually gave him a familiar feeling, but for a moment he couldn't determine what it was. After thinking for a while, Xiaoqin turned around. There was no black gas on Tang Tang's body either. He observed for a while and grabbed Tang Tang's hand. After injecting a sliver of primordial energy into Tang Tang's body, Xiaoqin looked inside again. He discovered that her dantian was the same as Tian Souring's. There was a familiar aura lingering around. However, Tang Tang's aura was stronger, while Tian Souring's aura was slightly weaker. After probing back and forth a few times, Xiaoqin found that although the aura was sometimes strong and sometimes weak, it always existed in their bodies. Fortunately, it did not cause any harm to their bodies. Rubbing his nose, Xiaoqin felt a little depressed. After checking for a long time, other than that aura, he didn't find anything strange at all. Could it be that this aura prevented Tian Souring's black mist from coming out after her cultivation? In desperation, Xiaoqin had to ask Elder Heaven Ancestor for help. Elder Heaven Ancestor, what's going on with the aura in their dantian? There doesn't seem to be such a thing in the 5 Poisons secret book. Stupid. Isn't that the aura from the elixir you gave Tang Tang before? Elder Heaven Ancestor lectured lazily. After that elixir was absorbed by Tang Tang, it dissolved into the true qi of the 5 Poisons secret book. You can also call it devil qi. I see. Xiaoqin's eyes lit up, but he was a little puzzled. Then why does Tian Souring have it in her body? Could it be? You're not too stupid after all. Yes, it's because of the dual cultivation just now. Elder Heaven Ancestor explained slowly. Tang Tang took the whole elixir, so the aura in her body is more vigorous. During the process of dual cultivation, Tian Souring's aura blended with Tang Tang's, exchanging and circulating, so she also absorbed a small part of it. But in the end it's not as much as Tang Tang's, so the aura will be weaker. So, Tian Souring can also cultivate the second half of the 5 Poisons secret book? Furthermore, she won't emit a black mist like Tang Qianling did, right? Xiaoqin was overjoyed and asked. Since the aura in the 2 women's dantian was transformed by the elixir, there was no problem. If Elder Heaven Ancestor's inference was right, then there would be no more worries when cultivating. Yes. But their cultivation is too low, so they can't rely on their own strength to absorb the efficacy of the elixir, so the elixir hasn't fully played its role yet. Elder Heaven Ancestor nodded and added, anyway, now that Tang Tang has learned the second half of the 5 Poisons secret book, you can cultivate with them. While quickly improving their strength, you can also help them digest and absorb the efficacy of the elixir. After that, Elder Heaven Ancestor didn't say anything. Anyway, Xiaoqin was already familiar with the 3 cultivators, so he didn't need any more help later. Oh, I see. Xiaoqin breathed a sigh of relief and turned to look at Tian Souring. She had calmed down from her emotions just now and was now looking at Xiaoqin eagerly. Honey Xiaoqin, can Sister Souring be cured? Tian Souring blinked her eyes and pursed her lips. If it doesn't work, why don't I give myself to you before the black mist comes out? Stop. You're fine. Don't worry. Here's the thing. Xiaoqin shook his head, not knowing whether to laugh or cry. He briefly explained the ins and outs of the matter to Tian Souring. After listening, Tian Souring finally breathed a sigh of relief. Since she didn't have to become like Tang Qianling, and at the same time she could have higher strength than now, why not? After figuring everything out, Tian Souring was ready to cultivate with Tang Tang under the guidance of Xiaoqin. Since they had been tossing and turning for a long time, the night was about to pass. The sky was turning white. Xiaoqin thought for a while and cautiously woke up Qing Menjing and the others before cultivating. He explained the situation to them and arranged for them to guard outside the door. Although Qing Menjing and the others were still a little sleepy, they didn't complain when they heard that they were going to help Tang Tang recover her consciousness. They all agreed. After giving them a few simple instructions, Xiao Qin closed the door and returned to his room to prepare for the 3 cultivators. Tian Souring and Xiao Qin had cultivated many times, so they were very familiar with it. Just now, Tang Tang and Tian Souring's aura had also been circulating perfectly, so the 3 of them quickly entered the state of cultivation. The cultivation did not know how long it had been. Suddenly Xiao Qin felt a strong aura erupt from Tang Tang's body. It swam wildly in her meridians, constantly expanding her meridians. In addition, Tang Tang's devil energy was also growing exponentially, and it was still increasing. Every time her devil energy circulated a great circle, it would double in size and wander in the meridians that were expanded by another aura. Chapter 1152. In the blink of an eye, the 2 auras circulated 3 times in Tang Tang's body. Then, one went from top to bottom and the other from bottom to top. They split into 2 paths and surged into her dantian at the same time. Boom. When the devil chi and the aura merged in Tang Tang's dantian, a loud bang was heard. A violent shock wave spread out from Tang Tang's body, sending Xiao Qin and Tian Yuanchuan flying. They fell heavily on the ground not far away. Fortunately, Xiao Qin and Tian Yuanchuan were in a state of cultivation. Their bodies were full of auras, so they were only a little unprepared for the fall. After Tang Tang exploded, she closed her eyes and fainted. But when she fell to the ground, her eyelids suddenly moved a few times. Xiao Qin, I didn't expect you to be here so early. Let's go. We can sell breakfast after we set up the stall. Huh. Your fried dough sticks look good and they're quite delicious. We're going to be rich. Tang Tang, why didn't you tell me you were sick? Don't sell breakfast. I'll go buy some medicine for you first. Leave the breakfast stall to me. Tang Tang, you're your cousin? But I'm not used to seeing you like this. The original fat Tang Tang is better. Tang Tang, have you thought it through? If you don't replace your mother, then her life will be in danger. Xiao Qin, I'm leaving. I hope you take care of yourself and don't come looking for me. Countless fragmented memory fragments rushed into Tang Tang's brain. They were reorganized like a slideshow, quickly filling up her originally empty brain. It made her feel like her entire head was swollen and painful. After a while, the memory fragments gradually stopped rushing in. Tang Tang moaned and slowly opened her eyes. The first thing that came into view was Xiao Qin's handsome face that she was very familiar with. Beside him stood a very beautiful woman. Both of them looked very nervous. But what surprised Tang Tang the most was that they were not wearing clothes. Tang Tang blinked her eyes and saw the 2 of them say something, but her ears were buzzing and she couldn't hear anything clearly. Husband Xiao Qin, look. Tang Tang is awake. When the tinnitus gradually disappeared and her hearing was restored, the first sentence she heard was from the strange beauty in front of her who was holding Xiao Qin's hand. Who is this tan beauty? How does she know my name? Why did she call Xiao Qin her husband? Wasn't Xiao Qin supposed to marry Cheng Minjin? What was going on? Tang Tang, how do you feel? Are you hurt or in pain anywhere? Xiao Qin stared at Tang Tang and asked with a dignified look. Then he grabbed Tang Tang's hand and immediately checked her with his primordial qi. He was relieved to find that the shock did not cause any internal injury to her. Xiao. What's wrong with me? What is this place? Tang Tang moved her lips. Her throat could make sounds but she couldn't even say a complete sentence. Because she hadn't spoken for a long time and Tang Tang's brain had just been freed from the control of the potion, she couldn't organize words for a while, and her speech was also intermittent. She tried hard to turn her head and look around at the strange environment around her. Tang Tang felt that her mind was blank and she was a little scared. Fortunately, the familiar Xiao Qin in front of her could give her a little comfort. Tang Tang didn't realize that she was holding Xiao Qin's hand tightly, and refused to let go for a moment. This is the Jia family of the internal martial arts world. Someone used a potion to control your mind, and then brought you to the Jia family. But it's okay now. You've become a venerable master and you've completely gotten rid of the potion in your body. You're just a little weak and you'll be fine after a good rest for a while. Xiao Qin suppressed the excitement in his heart and explained softly. When he checked Tang Tang's body just now, Xiao Qin found that she had successfully leveled up and made a breakthrough. Although she was only half a step away from the venerable master, as long as she took some time to consolidate her cultivation, it wouldn't take long for her to reach the first level of the venerable master. The Jia family of the internal martial arts world. Venerable master. I was controlled by a potion? What? Tang Tang frowned and tried hard to recall, but she couldn't remember anything. She tried to think again, but she suddenly felt a sharp pain in her brain. She couldn't help but groan. Ouch. My head hurts so much. Xiaoqin, why don't I have any impression of what you said? Well, Tang Tang, don't think so much. You've just woken up, so you'd better rest for a while. Seeing Tang Tang like this, Xiaoqin couldn't help but feel distressed. He hurriedly activated his primordial qi and gently massaged her head a few times. He didn't stop until Tang Tang gradually fell asleep. Honey Xiaoqin, what's going on with Tang Tang? Tian Suruan scratched her head in confusion. Sister Suruan, I felt that she had returned to normal and could speak, but then it seemed that she was a little abnormal. It's okay. She may have temporary amnesia. She should only remember the things in the past, but she has no memory of what happened recently. Xiaoqin stared at Tang Tang's cheek, brushed away the hair on her face and whispered, but it's not a big deal. As long as she has a good rest for a few days, she will slowly recover. Oh then. Tian Suruan suddenly exclaimed. She had inadvertently looked down just now and found that her clothes were gone. She quickly grabbed a bath towel and wrapped her body with it, her face as red as an apple. Xiaoqin couldn't help shaking his head and smiling. He also took 2 blankets and wrapped Tang Tang and himself. He hadn't practiced double cultivation or triple cultivation for a long time. He had forgotten just now that the clothes on his body would explode when he broke through. He used to take off his clothes before he began to practice. Obviously he was careless this time. In fact, Xiaoqin didn't expect that the power of Tang Tang's breakthrough would be so great. Not only did her own clothes explode, but even the clothes of Xiaoqin and Tian Suruan were all burned. As a result, all 3 of them were naked. Tian Suruan suddenly had an idea. She looked at Tang Tang, who was sleeping soundly, and said, "Oh, Sister Suruan knows. It's that acute temporary mental disorder, right?" Seeing that Xiaoqin nodded, Tian Suruan said angrily, "Tang Tang is so pitiful. She finally recovered to be an ordinary person, but she lost her memory again. Humph, those people who injected her with the potion really deserve to die. If Sister Suruan meets them, I'll punch them into meat paste." Chapter 1153. After that, Tian Wangshu still refused to stop. She waved her small fist as if demonstrating, channeling her mind, and punched out. Boom. Before anyone could react, the entire door was blasted into pieces. Even the wall on the side was cracked. Cheng Minjing and the others' screams could be heard from outside the door. "What's going on? What's going on?" Cheng Minjing asked. Tian Wangshu was dumbfounded. She looked at the debris on the ground and then at her fist. She was so surprised that she opened her mouth wide and couldn't speak. "Wangshu, I forgot to tell you that when Tang Tang leveled up just now, you also broke through with her." Xiaoqin rubbed his temple with a little headache and said helplessly, "You are a Demon King Great Perfection powerhouse now. You can't just mess around." Xiaoqin really didn't expect Tian Wangshu to do such a stupid thing, but it was also his fault for reminding her first. Fortunately, the people outside the door were not injured because of this. Otherwise it would be big trouble. Tian Wangshu was still in a daze. She looked down at her hands with an unbelievable expression on her face. Before Tian Wangshu could react, a group of people rushed into the room. Cheng Minjing shook off the dust on her body and took the lead to ask, "Xiaoqin, what happened? Did someone come to sneak attack?" Looking at the girls who were originally beautiful, but now all looked dusty, Xiaoqin smiled bitterly and pointed at Tian Wangshu. Before he could speak, he heard footsteps coming from outside. After a while, Jianghu also ran over with the guards. Looking at the messy room and Xiaoqin and others wrapped in blankets and bath towels, he was a little stunned. After coming back to his senses, Jianghu first waved the guards away, then he asked nervously, "Xiaoqin, what's going on? Did those despicable guys from Awakened Gate send people again?" "No, it's actually Sister Wangshu's fault. I accidentally smashed the door." Tian Wangshu finally woke up. She stuck out her little tongue and raised her hand to confess in embarrassment. She didn't expect that she would cause such a big commotion. Also, when did she level up? Why don't I have any impression of him? Forget it. Sour, just be careful in the future. Jianghu, you wouldn't mind if Sour smashed your door, right? Xiaoqin didn't care too much about it. Instead, he joked with Jianghu. When he had just obtained the strength of a cultivator, he had also accidentally smashed the wall of the dormitory, so he could understand Tian Suruan's feelings very well. No. I'll get someone to fix it later. It's not a big deal. You guys can move to another room. Jianghu quickly waved his hand and looked at Tian Suruan enviously. If others could break through so quickly, why couldn't he? I should ask Xiao Chen for advice some other day. Xiao Chen chuckled. He picked up Tang Tang with one hand and pulled Tian Souring with the other. He said to everyone, "Well, Tang Tang is fine now. Let's send her to another room to rest and then change into clean clothes. I'll explain it to you in detail later." After that, Xiao Chen took the two women to another room and settled Tang Tang down. Then he and Tian Souring cleaned up and came out to give a brief account of the previous situation to everyone. Alas, Tang Tang is really pitiful. Not only was she injected with medicine, but now she has lost part of her memory. I hope she can recover soon. After listening to Xiao Chen's account, Qing Minjing sighed slightly. Although she didn't like Tang Tang very much before and always felt that she had stolen her fiancé, she had already gotten over it after so many things. So, she was very sympathetic to Tang Tang's experience at this time. Don't worry, Tang Tang only has temporary amnesia. It may be that after the breakthrough, her brain suddenly received a shock, which caused her to become like this. It won't take long for her to slowly remember. Xiao Chen smiled slightly and said. He was quite familiar with the symptoms of temporary amnesia. As long as the patient was no longer stimulated by the outside world, she could basically recover 100% as long as the patient was allowed to rest for a while. That's good. We are all waiting for her to recover. It's a lot of people to chat with. Ling Qinxue said with a smile. When Xiao Chen was not there, they had been taking care of Tang Tang. She also heard Qing Minjing talk about the past, so she was very concerned about Tang Tang. That. Xiao Chen, I have something to tell you. Jianghu stood on the side for a long time. At this time he finally found a chance to speak and quickly said. What's wrong? What happened? Xiao Chen looked up and saw the guilty look on Jianghu's face. He was a little surprised and asked. Jianghu hesitated for a moment and said, A few days ago at the family banquet, I happened to get a piece of news. It may be about your father. What? Xiao Chen suddenly stood up and walked in front of Jianghu. He asked eagerly, What news? I heard that in addition to the venerable secret land, there is another very mysterious place in the inner martial world. That place is more advanced than the venerable secret land. Your father may also be sent there. Jianghu said in a deep voice. When he got the news, Jianghu planned to immediately find Xiao Chen and tell him the news. However, because there were too many people who wanted to toast to him at the banquet, he couldn't get away. Because he couldn't drink, he was drunk and passed out. In the end, he was carried back to his room by the servants. When Jianghu woke up the next day, he found that Xiao Chen, Tang Tang and Tian Suruan were practicing in the room, while Qing Minjing and the others were guarding them outside. Jianghu didn't want to go in and disturb them, so he could only put this matter aside for the time being. As a result, he accidentally delayed it until now, so he felt a little guilty. Is this news reliable? Why didn't you tell me earlier? Xiao Chen couldn't help but frown. Then he remembered that he seemed to have practiced for a long time. He touched his nose a little embarrassedly and apologized. I'm sorry, it's not your fault. I only focused on practicing with Tang Tang and the others. As for how many days I stayed in the room, I have no idea. It doesn't matter. You were just anxious. Jianghu waved his hand and didn't mind. He added, You have practiced for 4 days. Today is the 5th day. Originally, I wanted to let Qing Minjing in to see the situation, but I was afraid that it would affect your practice, so I waited until you finished. Is there anything else besides this news? Xiao Chen nodded and continued to ask. Chapter 1154. Jianghu poured a cup of water for himself, picked up the cup and drank it in one gulp, then said, This news was spread by a disciple of the Yu clan. He drank too much and accidentally mentioned that a while ago, the Yu clan had helped Awakening Heaven sect to escort 2 people to that place, and these 2 people were previously miners at the Heavenly Jade Mine. Yu clan? Isn't it that Yu Dongxing's clan? I didn't expect them to be related to Awakening Heaven sect. Xiao Chen used his fingers to knock on the table a few times and said with a calm face, It seems that Awakening Heaven sect has their own spies in the 3 great clans. Their schemes are not shallow. Cough cough. Little girl Xing, who was sitting at the side, suddenly coughed twice. Seeing Xiao Chen's gaze turn over, she quickly waved her hands and said with a helpless expression, I really don't know about this. I usually help the sect deal with matters in the outside world and the secular world. I'm not too clear about these connections in the inner world. And I'm not talking about you. Don't worry. Xiao Chen nodded and turned to ask Jianghu, What exactly does this Yu clan do? Why does Awakening Heaven sect's people need the Yu clan to help escort them? It's like this. I mentioned to you before that the Yu clan has a lot of secret cultivation books and heavenly treasures, right? Seeing that Xiao Qin agreed, Jianghu continued to explain, it's precisely because they have mastered some unique techniques that they can use to open the doors of various ruins and secret realms. That's how they obtain these things. And Awakening Heaven sect may have taken a fancy to this point, that's why they took the initiative to cooperate with the Yu clan. Originally, Jianghu didn't have the opportunity to know these secrets. However, after becoming the young clan master, his information channels imperceptibly widened a lot. Some of the core secrets between clans and sects, he gradually came into contact with them during various banquets and banquets. Furthermore, Jianghu had been purposely helping Xiao Qin search for information about his father. As time went by, Jianghu managed to capture this situation. Then let's go to the Yu clan and Awakening Heaven sect and capture some people to interrogate. Xiao Qin shrugged and said confidently, as long as I can find out the specific location of that place, I'm sure I can open the gate there and rescue my father directly. Xiao Qin reckoned that the Yu clan's unique martial skill that Jianghu was talking about should be a type of magic array. There was nothing strange about it. He was a cultivator, dealing with this kind of array formation was simply a piece of cake. I'm afraid that's a bit unrealistic. Jianghu scratched his head, sighed and said, I heard that it was Sidu Chi Tian and the Yu clan master who had personally escorted those two people, so only they knew the location and the method to open the door. You can't possibly capture both of them at once, right? That's too risky. Although Jianghu knew that Xiao Qin was indeed very strong and could even injure Sidu Chi Tian, the difficulty of capturing him was not on the same level at all. Furthermore, he had to capture the Yu clan master at the same time. This was even more difficult to achieve. This looks like I can only think of another way. Hearing Jianghu's words, Xiao Qin shook his head helplessly. Since he could not make a move on Sidu Chi Tian, he could only take a detour. No matter how strong Xiao Qin was, he would not be able to capture two experts at the same time. Sidu Chi Tian was definitely a venerable, and since the Yu clan's clan head could control the entire clan, he should also be a venerable like Jia Jinyan. Xiao Qin indeed did not have absolute confidence that he could capture them. After thinking for a while, Xiao Qin suddenly thought of something and asked again, that's right, how did Sidu Chi Tian get the location of that place? Jianghu recalled for a while and said with a little uncertainty, that person said that Sidu Chi Tian obtained the information by chance from the Venerable Secret Realm. Venerable Secret Realm? Xiao Qin fell into deep thought. This place had been mentioned too many times recently, causing him to have a vague feeling that something was wrong. Jianghu nodded and said, although I don't know the accuracy of this information, I think you can try your luck at the Venerable Secret Realm. Anyway, the Secret Realm is going to open soon. Maybe you can find the specific location of that place when you go in this time? That's good. After Tang Tang recovers her memory, we will prepare and set off for the Venerable Secret Realm. Xiao Qin thought about it and felt that this was the only feasible way. At least they would have a certain goal, and they would not have to wander around like a headless fly. Alright then, I will go and prepare for you first. Fortunately, the pier to the Venerable Secret Realm is closer to our Jia clan, so you don't have to rush. You can go a few days later. Jianghu nodded and bid farewell to Xiao Qin and the others. He stood up and left his courtyard. After seeing Jianghu off, Xiao Qin sent the other women to rest. He sat quietly by Tang Tang's bed, gazing at her sleeping face and reached out to gently stroke her cheek. Thinking of the days when he and Tang Tang set up a breakfast stall and sold fried dough sticks and soy milk, Xiao Qin's mouth involuntarily curled into a faint smile. That period of time in Songning Second High School was the warmest and most relaxing period of his life. If it were not for the fact that his main goal was to find his father, Xiao Qin would like to take Tang Tang and the other girls to put down all the disputes and chaos, return to the morning market street to set up a small stall, and live a peaceful life. That's right. I wonder how Lu Shuangshuang and Kerlin are doing? Are they doing well in Songning City? If I am not around to protect them, will they be bullied? Alas, forget it. Let's not think about this for now. The most important thing now is to restore Tang Tang's memory, successfully find his father and the uncle of the eldest miss, and then bring them safely back to Songning City. While Xiao Qin was waiting for Tang Tang to wake up, on the other hand, Hongzhu had also arrived in the secular world. After meeting up with Li Xiener, she wandered around Songning City for several days, but still could not find a woman with spiritual energy. Both of them were a little discouraged. After a discussion, they could only choose to go to the warrior guild to have a look. Although this place was more dangerous to be found, There were more cultivators after all, so the probability of finding a suitable candidate would be higher. Binoculars, high-definition binoculars for sale. I guarantee that you can see the mission clearly. If you can't see it clearly, it's free. In the warrior guild, Lu Shuangshuang was wearing oversized sunglasses, carrying a small bag and holding binoculars in her hand, pedaling around the hall. Originally, Lu Shuangshuang did not want to come to such a place where people of good and bad people mix together. She had tried to do other jobs, but not only was the income not high, but it was also easy to be taken advantage of. In desperation, she had to choose to copy her old profession. Hey, little girl, how much for a binoculars? A man with a scar on his face waved and shouted at Lu Shuangshuang from afar. Chapter 1155. 15,000. Lu Shuangshuang quickly walked over when she saw business. She waved the binoculars in her hand. What? Say that again? The knife-scarred man frowned and glared at Lu Shuangshuang. 15,000. 15,000. 15,000. Important things need to be repeated 3 times. Have you heard enough? Lu Shuangshuang couldn't help but roll her eyes. She said angrily, are you buying it or not? If not, I'm leaving. What the F***ck, this stupid thing is worth 15,000. The knife-scarred man snatched the binoculars and took out $100 bill from his pocket. He threw it over and shouted fiercely, I only have 100 on me. If you want it, take it. If not, scram. Leave the thing. Don't. Give me back the binoculars. I don't want to do business with you. $100 isn't even enough to cover the cost. Lu Shuangshuang was anxious. She immediately took off her sunglasses and reached out to take back the binoculars. However, the knife-scarred man retracted his hand and put the binoculars behind him. Lu Shuangshuang wasn't lying. The quality of the binoculars was much better than before. She didn't want to sell it at such an expensive price. Although the Warriors Guild didn't charge her management fee anymore, they had set the rule that she had to sell it for 15,000. She couldn't do anything about it. In fact, if the person who bought the binoculars had a better attitude, Lu Shuangshuang could have made less money. She could have sold it for $200 or $300. The Warriors Guild wouldn't investigate how much she sold it for anyway. It was just for show. However, the knife-scarred man's attitude was bad. Lu Shuangshuang simply reported the price. Anyway, it could be checked. In the end, not only did this guy say bad things, he even took away her binoculars. Lu Shuangshuang was so angry that she didn't want to do this business. Oh, I couldn't tell. You're quite pretty. The knife-scarred man was stunned by Lu Shuangshuang's true appearance under the sunglasses. He licked his lips greedily. His hawk-like eyes swept across her chest and white legs. He smiled cheekily and said, how about this? It's not like I don't have money. Play with me for a few days and I'll give you 15,000. What do you think? What? Before the scar-faced man could finish speaking, Lu Shuangshuang was so angry that she kicked the scar-faced man and sent him sprawling on the ground. Lu Shuangshuang reached out and snatched the binoculars from his hand while the scarred man was dancing in pain. She scolded him, accompany my ass, you psychopath. Why don't you take a look at yourself in the mirror? Look at yourself. My husband is the White Fox hero. If you don't want to lose your life, you'd better get lost. Mother****, you little bitch, how dare you kick me? The knife-scarred man got up and roared furiously, I don't care if your husband is a white fox or a black dog. Even if the heavenly king comes to plead for mercy, I will kill you. After that, the scar-faced man spat and raised his hand to slap Lu Shuangshuang's face. Stop. Before the scar-faced man's palm could hit Lu Shuangshuang's face, 2 slender figures stood in front of her. Shuangshuang shouted, and one of the figures even flew up and kicked the scar-faced man's wrist. Kacha. Ouch. The sound of bones breaking was heard. The scar-faced man wailed and squatted down while holding his wrist with a painful expression. The patrolling guards of the Warriors Guild heard the commotion and finally rushed over. They looked at the scar-faced man squatting on the ground, then looked at Lu Shuangshuang and the other 2 women. The leader of the guards asked with a sullen face, what's going on? Don't you know that the Warriors Guild prohibits private fights? There's no law. The scar-faced man immediately shouted and attracted the attention of the leader of the guards. He then pointed at Lu Shuangshuang and complained, this little girl sold the binoculars for 15,000 yuan. I was surprised and asked a few more questions. She became angry and called for help to beat me up. You have to help me. The leader of the guards turned to look at Lu Shuangshuang. He knew that a binoculars cost 15,000 yuan, but to beat someone up for asking a few more questions, it seemed to be against the rules. You guys came at the right time. Without waiting for Lu Shuangshuang to explain herself, Hongzhu, who was standing by the side, said coldly, "That scar-faced fellow wanted to hit this young lady, so I taught him a lesson while I was at it. You guys hurry up and capture him." "How dare you order me around?" The leader of the guards was a little unhappy. Even if you were beautiful and charming, it didn't mean that you could order people around in the Warriors Guild. Raising his eyebrows, the leader of the guards wanted to show his authority, but before he could do so, he saw Hongzhu take out a token and wave it in front of him. "What is this?" The leader of the guards took a closer look and saw that the token was engraved with a distinct Hong character. The leader of the guards was so scared that he almost peed his pants. He immediately closed his legs and said respectfully, "So it's the eldest daughter of the Hong family. I didn't recognize you. I'm really sorry. Alright, don't talk nonsense. Hurry up and take him away." Hongzhu put away the token and waved her hand impatiently. "Yes, I'll do as you say." The guard leader nodded, turned around and pointed at the scarred man with a fierce look on his face as he roared, "Everything in the warrior market is clearly marked with a price tag. There is no mistake. This person deliberately caused trouble and disturbed the order of the guild. He has ulterior motives. Quickly take him away for interrogation." After watching the guards take the stunned scar-faced man away, Hongzhu snorted lazily and turned to Lu Shuangshuang and said, "Let me introduce myself. I'm Hongzhu, a member of the Hong family. This is my friend Li Xiener. Are you hurt?" Li Xiener? Lu Shuangshuang was stunned when she heard this name. She turned around and saw Li Xiener looking at her in a daze. "What's wrong?" Li Xiener was shocked by Lu Shuangshuang's sudden look and asked in confusion. "Nothing." Lu Shuangshuang saw a completely unfamiliar face and shook her head in embarrassment. "Your name is the same as a classmate of mine." You thought she was your classmate?" Hongzhu smiled and said, "This name is actually quite common. It's normal to have the same name. It can be considered fate between us." Lu Shuangshuang finally regained her senses and quickly thanked Hongzhu. Hello, I'm Lu Shuangshuang. Thank you for your help just now. Otherwise I really wouldn't know what to do." Li Xiener stared at Lu Shuangshuang with a strange expression and unconsciously looked her up and down. Chapter 1156. Earlier, when she and Hongzhu had just entered the warrior guild, Li Xiener had sensed a suitable candidate nearby. Could it be Lu Shuangshuang? Lu Shuangshuang was a little scared by Li Xiener's stare and couldn't help but touch her face. However, the other party had just saved her, so it wasn't appropriate for her to question her. In any case, she could look if she liked. It wasn't like she had to spend money. The two women in front of her were both very beautiful and had a moving temperament. The one called Hongzhu was charming and eye-catching, while Li Xiener's smile was elegant and refined, making people unconsciously trust them. "You're welcome." Hongzhu waved his hand and said straightforwardly, "Miss Lu, there are some things we would like to discuss with you alone. Is it convenient for you now?" She couldn't be bothered with empty pleasantries. The spiritual energy emitted from Lu Shuangshuang was the same as what she had sensed before, so it shouldn't be wrong. All right." Lu Shuangshuang hesitated for a moment before nodding and agreeing to Hongzhu's request. Although she didn't know what Hongzhu had to discuss with her, he didn't seem like a bad person. Moreover, Li Xiener also looked harmless, so Lu Shuangshuang didn't feel wary. Perhaps the other party wanted to introduce her to some business? Hongzhu smiled and made an inviting gesture, then led Lu Shuangshuang to a room in the Warriors Market Square next door. She first ordered someone to serve tea and snacks before sitting down. "May I know why the two of you have called me here?" Lu Shuangshuang asked first. She was worried about the Warrior Guild's business and wanted to quickly conclude the discussion so she could go back and continue selling binoculars. "I wonder if Miss Lu has heard of the outer and inner martial worlds?" Hongzhu thought for a moment and chose a topic that was easier to cut to the chase. "Yes, I've heard a bit about it when I was in the Warrior Guild." Lu Shuangshuang nodded. Although she had always stayed in the secular world, she would often come and go from the Warrior Guild and often hear about the inner and outer martial worlds. "Then it's easy." Hongzhu smiled and continued, "I am from the outer martial world's Hong clan, and this Li Xiener is a disciple of the Five Elements sect. This time we came to the secular world to find a woman with spiritual energy and ask her to help us." "A woman with spiritual aura?" Lu Shuangshuang asked again. Finally she realized something. "Me?" Yes, we specifically came to you to make a deal with you, Hongzhu said solemnly. What deal? When Lu Shuangshuang heard the words related to business, she immediately became alert. Li Xianer suddenly asked, you must know some levels of cultivators, right? As far as you know, what is the highest level of cultivation? The highest level? Lu Shuangshuang furrowed her brows and thought for a moment before replying, I think it's the martial king level, but I don't think I've seen anyone who has reached this level. In the outer martial world, the highest level of cultivators is the martial king and demon king. Li Xianer nodded and continued, in the inner martial arts world there are martial kings and demon kings everywhere. They need to reach a higher level, which is martial venerable and demon venerable. Oh, and then? Lu Shuangshuang scratched her head. People of that level were too vague. She had no idea at all. Right now, she felt that the two of them had been beating around the bush for a long time and still hadn't gotten to the point. After that, it's the place where we're going to trade with you. Hongzhu looked straight at Lu Shuangshuang and said bluntly, in the inner martial world, martial venerable and demon venerable are already the highest levels, but we are not satisfied with that. We need you to open the door to the world of cultivators for us. World of cultivators? Isn't it the outer martial world and the inner martial world? When did the world of cultivators appear? Lu Shuangshuang was confused. What was this all about? Miss Lu, please don't be impatient. Please allow me to explain it to you in detail. Li Xianer waved her hand and said with a smile, our five-element sect, Hongzhu's Hong family, and some other clans and sects are collectively known as the Immortal Cultivation sect. Our cultivation method is different from that of ordinary martial cultivators and demon cultivators. We can break through to the venerable level, but it is impossible to reach that level in the inner martial world. So you want to go to the world of cultivators? Lu Shuangshuang blinked her eyes and asked. That's right, but the door to the world of cultivators is closed all year round. Our immortal cultivation sect has never been able to enter. Only our ancestor Shenzhen, passed down a method to open the door to the world of cultivators. It requires a woman with spiritual qi to perform a specific sacrificial ceremony. Only then can the world of cultivators be opened. And you are this kind of person. Li Xianer finally finished explaining the whole matter in a simple manner. How did you guys determine that I was the right person? Lu Shuangshuang's expression was slightly puzzled. She usually only sold binoculars in the Warriors Guild, and she didn't do anything out of line. How could they lock onto her? Since we were able to find you, then we definitely have our methods. You don't need to ask any more. After Hongzhu finished speaking in an unhurried manner, he picked up a piece of pastry from the table, took a small bite and slowly swallowed it. Even though Hongzhu didn't deliberately make any gestures, the way he ate was still very moving. Lu Shuangshuang was a little fascinated. That's not right. After being fascinated for a while, Lu Shuangshuang suddenly became alert. She looked at Hongzhu and Li Xianer suspiciously and asked, why should I believe you guys? What if you guys take me away and then sell me? Hongzhu was really a little surprised. There weren't many people who could escape from her invisible charm technique. It seemed like this little girl really had some spiritual qi. Li Xianer thought for a while, then pointed at the pastry on the table and said, then look carefully. Under Lu Shuangshuang's dumbfounded gaze, the pastry suddenly floated up, then slowly drifted towards her mouth. Lu Shuangshuang subconsciously opened her mouth and took a bite. As expected, it was the sweet and fragrant osmanthus flower pastry. Then with a pa sound, the osmanthus flower pastry fell into her palm. Originally, if the pastry was taken away by Li Xianer, Lu Shuangshuang would still suspect that it was a smokescreen. But now, it was clear that she had eaten this osmanthus flower pastry. Could it be that this Li Xianer had special abilities? Before Lu Shuangshuang could think too much, she suddenly felt an overwhelming pressure sweep over her, causing her to let out a muffled groan. She felt as if an ancient beast was staring at her, and could pounce on her at any time. But not long after, that pressure suddenly disappeared. Lu Shuangshuang suddenly raised her head and saw Hongzhu looking at her with a faint smile. How is it? Do you believe me now? I believe. Lu Shuangshuang replied in a daze. She also had some understanding of cultivation. Based on Hongzhu's aura just now, even if he wanted to force her to do something, she wouldn't be able to resist. Swindling or anything like that was definitely impossible. Chapter 1157. Li Xianer nodded and looked eagerly at Lu Shuangshuang asking, Miss Lu, can you promise us? We've been searching for a long time. If we don't find it soon, it's very likely that some cruel and treacherous sects will take the initiative. If we let them enter the cultivation world first, it'll be too late by then. Facing Li Xian'er's burning gaze, Lu Shuangshuang lowered her head and pondered for a moment. Biting her lower lip, she asked, I still have a few questions. Will it be risky for me to do this? Although she had roughly understood the other party's intentions after listening for a long time and could feel their strength and sincerity, there were still some questions that she couldn't feel at ease without clarifying them. She couldn't just agree so easily. Li Xian'er glanced at Hongzhu and hesitated for a moment before telling the truth. Miss Lu, we won't lie to you. There will definitely be risks. After all, no one has tried this before, so we can't guarantee a 100% success rate. That's right. To be honest, you might lose your life, but you might also become a top expert. Hongzhu patted the crumbs in his hand and added. Lu Shuangshuang nodded and asked tentatively, Is that so? Then I have one last question. If I go, what kind of benefits can I get in return? Lu Shuangshuang thought about it. If she had to sacrifice herself for the sake of the sect, it didn't seem right. She didn't know what kind of bargaining chip Li Xian'er and the others would offer to win her agreement. There will definitely be benefits. Hongzhu raised his head to look at Lu Shuangshuang and continued, As for what kind of benefits, you can name it. Whether it's money or heavenly treasures, just name it. We will definitely satisfy all your conditions. Lu Shuangshuang opened her mouth but hesitated. For a moment she didn't know what to say. If it was a while ago and Xiaoqin hadn't cured her grandmother's illness, she would definitely agree without hesitation. But it was different now. Since her grandmother's illness was cured and she had a considerable amount of savings, then, was there still a need to take this risk? If she died, what would happen to her grandmother? It's fine, I know this will be very difficult. Seeing Lu Shuangshuang's hesitant expression, Hongzhu didn't want to force her any further and said, You don't have to choose to agree or refuse immediately. Go back and think about it for a few days before giving us an answer. Really? That's great. Hearing Hongzhu's words, Lu Shuangshuang heaved a huge sigh of relief. If she had to make a decision immediately, she really wouldn't be able to make it. Hongzhu nodded. He took out his business card and handed it to Lu Shuangshuang. This is my phone number. You can call me when you've made up your mind. I'll be staying in Songning City for the time being. All right, if there's nothing else, I'll go back first. Xian, or we'll keep in touch later. Lu Shuangshuang put away the name card, bid farewell to Hongzhu and Li Xian'er and left the room. Lu Shuangshuang was still a little conflicted. Naturally, she didn't think that she could make a living by selling binoculars for the rest of her life. However, from Hongzhu's tone, if she helped open the door to the cultivation world, her life might be in danger. What would be the point of having money if he lost his life? Moreover, if he went to the cultivation world, who would take care of his grandma? Would he have to rely on Xiaoqin? But now there was no news of him and she hadn't seen him for a long time. Sister Hongzhu, I think that as long as we put in a little more effort, Lu Shuangshuang should agree. Why did you let her go so soon? Li Xian'er asked in a puzzled manner as she watched Lu Shuangshuang leave. She had been looking for so long, but she hadn't found a suitable one. Now that she had finally found a suitable one, Li Xian'er felt that it was a pity to let her go just like that. There's nothing we can do. The spiritual energy in her body isn't enough, only about 30%. It's far from our goal. Hongzhu shook his head. Didn't you hear what I said just now? We still have to stay in Songning City for a while and try to see if there are any suitable women with spiritual energy. Why is there so little? Li Xian'er was very surprised when she heard this. Could spiritual energy be lost? I'm guessing that she has already been raped. If she was still a virgin and full of spiritual energy, I wouldn't have let her go so easily. Hongzhu sighed with a slightly annoyed expression. I don't know which goddamn bastard took such a good girl's virginity. It's not enough for me to find her, and I have to find someone else. At this moment in the Jia family of Wulin, Xiaoqin, who was sitting next to Tang Tang's bed, suddenly sneezed for no reason. He couldn't help but feel a little strange. I'm already at the nascent soul stage, how can I still catch a cold? Xiaoqin, are you feeling unwell? Cheng Minjing and the other women were packing their luggage in the room. When they saw Xiaoqin suddenly sneeze, they hurriedly asked with concern. The other women also had worried expressions on their faces. It's okay. I guess someone is talking about me behind my back. After all, I'm also a master of the venerable realm. How can I catch a cold? Xiaoqin waved his hand and said with a smile. Cheng Minjing was still a little worried. She simply walked over and reached out to touch his forehead. After carefully feeling for a while and making sure that there were no symptoms of headache or fever, she was relieved and said, "You haven't slept for several days. Why don't you go to sleep for a while? We'll keep an eye on you here. There won't be any problems." Xiaoqun turned his head and looked at the piles of clothes and cosmetics on the women's beds. He couldn't help but shake his head and said with a smile, "I won't sleep. You'd better hurry up and pack your own luggage. Xing girl is still practicing in her room now. She only has one bag and it'll be finished in half a day. But you guys, I think you need to prepare 4 or 5 suitcases." "But, Tang Tang?" Cheng Minjing was a little embarrassed, but she still looked at Tang Tang with a worried face. Xiaoqun understood Cheng Minjing's meaning. He turned his head and stared at Tang Tang's cheek and said, "It's okay. We'll set off for the Venerable Realm the day after tomorrow. If Tang Tang hasn't woken up by then, I'll take her with me." It had been 3 or 4 days since Tang Tang fainted. The girl didn't move at all. If it weren't for the slight breathing sound and the slight undulation of her chest, Xiaoqun would have thought that she had fainted. In fact, Xiaoqun was very clear that Tang Tang's brain was flooded with too many memories when she suddenly regained consciousness. Her brain cells couldn't handle such a huge amount of information, so she could only be in a dormant state for the time being. Chapter 1158. The human brain was similar to a computer. If it processed too much data, it would crash. After her brain sorted out the memories, she would wake up. "Okay. If you're tired, remember to call us. Don't force yourself." Cheng Minjing saw that she couldn't persuade Xiaoqun, so she nodded and turned away. After taking 2 steps, Cheng Minjing looked back again and saw Xiaoqun sitting motionlessly by the bed, and Tang Tang on the bed showed no signs of waking up. She could not help but sigh slightly and continued to pack her luggage. "Hey, whose clothes are these?" Tian Suruan suddenly asked curiously. "They're so broken and full of the smell of oil. Why are they still there?" When the girls heard this, they turned their heads and saw Tian Suruan pick up a folded chef's uniform. He flipped it back and forth a few times, and another chef's uniform fell out from it. Then an envelope fell on the ground, but Tian Suruan did not notice it. Picking up the 2 chef's suits, Tian Suruan looked at them carefully and said with surprise, "Wow! It's a couple's chef's suit. Xiaoqun's honey, this set of men's suit should be yours, right? Who's this set of women's chef's suit?" This is..." Xiaoqun turned his head and saw the chef's suit in Tian Suruan's hand. He was slightly stunned. When he was about to explain, Tian Suruan suddenly looked at Cheng Minjing and said, "Oh yes, this suit should be Sister Minjing's." Cheng Minjing was stunned. How did she get involved? Tian Suruan said seriously, "I remember that you 2 worked together to sell breakfast before, didn't you? Gee, I didn't expect it to be so interesting. You even played with uniforms in private. I'm so jealous of Sister Suruan." This. Xiaoqun broke into a cold sweat and was about to explain when he was interrupted by Cheng Minjing. Cheng Minjing pointed at the female chef's uniform and glared at Tian Souring. She said angrily, "Stinky Souring, stupid Souring, open your eyes wider and take a good look. Do you think I can wear such a big size? This was obviously worn by someone else, okay? Don't blame me for everything." Although she said that, Cheng Minjing was also very puzzled. She carefully looked at the 2 chef's suits, feeling as if she had seen them somewhere before, but she really couldn't remember. Moreover, if Tian Suruan hadn't mentioned it, she really wouldn't have noticed that these 2 sets of clothes were actually matching outfits. She didn't have that kind of bad taste. "Alright, Sour, the clothes in front of you were all brought over by Xiaoqun. Stop messing around and quickly pack up your belongings. Also, don't forget to put away the letter on the ground." Ling Er had just finished packing her luggage and was about to help Tian Souring. She pointed at the letter on the ground and said. Tian Souring picked up the letter and looked at it carefully. Suddenly, his face was filled with excitement. "Waha! Quick look, it's written for Xiaoqun. And the handwriting is so beautiful, it's obvious that it was written by a woman. Are you guys interested in appreciating the contents?" After saying that, Tian Souring held the letter in his hands as if he had found a treasure. He muttered to himself, "Hee, I wonder what's written inside. Sister Suruan can't wait to read it." However, before Tian Souring opened the letter, Ling Qinshua quickly walked over and snatched the letter. She frowned and lectured, "Souring, what's wrong with you? How can you read Xiaoqun's privacy so casually? Maybe this was left behind by his parents. This kind of habit isn't good, you have to change it." After saying that, Ling Qianxue carefully folded the letter. Then, she personally folded the 2 pairs of chef's uniforms and stuffed the letter into the pocket of the chef's uniform. Although Ling Qianxue was also a little curious in her heart, she still respected Xiao Chen and didn't want to open other people's letters without permission. If you guys want to see it, then see it. Xiao Chen didn't mind it too much. He stood up and walked to his clothes, explaining, "This couple's chef's suit was bought by Tang Tang when I was in high school in Songning City. Tang Tang and I set up a stall on the morning market street, and she spent 120 yuan to buy it online." Dusting off the creases on his clothes, Xiao Chen took out the envelope that Ling Qianxue had put away. Looking at the handwriting on it, he smiled and shook his head. "Although these clothes don't seem to be worth much now, it was a big expense for us at that time. So, I deliberately kept it as a souvenir." Shortly after Xiao Chen stood up and left, Tang Tang's eyelashes suddenly moved slightly. However, Xiao Chen and others' attention was focused on the chef's uniform and the envelope, so no one noticed it. Really? Sister Suruan, can you really read it?" Tian Shaoring's eyes suddenly lit up. Just as she was about to reach out, she felt 3 sharp eyes staring at her. Her body couldn't help but tremble. She naturally knew who the owners of these eyes were. She could also feel the condemnation in these eyes, so she quickly retracted her hand. In fact, Tian Shaoring also knew that she shouldn't pry into other people's privacy. However, her understanding of Xiao Chen was never as much as Qing Menjing. So, she had always hoped to know more about Xiao Chen's past. Now that it was like this, she didn't have any bad intentions. Looking at Tian Shaoring's eager face, but she didn't dare to reach out because of the pressure from Qing Menjing and the other girls. Xiao Chen couldn't help but directly put the envelope in her hand and said lightly, "Of course, this is not a secret." Holding the envelope carefully in her hand, Tian Shaoring couldn't help but swallow. She felt that Qing Menjing and the other girls' eyes were more severe. Although she felt a little uneasy, driven by strong curiosity, Tian Shaoring couldn't help but take out the letter and read it under the light. Qing Menjing, Ling and Ling Qianxue looked at each other. Although they were a little embarrassed, they all unconsciously stretched their necks and quietly glanced at the letter in Tian Shaoring's hand. Tian Shaoring could naturally feel their movements. She was afraid that Qing Menjing and the others couldn't see it and would blame her again, so she simply read it out loud. "Xiao Chen, I've thought about it carefully. Let's break up. I don't think we're suitable for each other. I said you've changed, but in fact I've changed. Call me selfish or heartless. Anyway, I want to leave. Don't look for me. I won't let you find me." Tang Tang. The more she read, the more Tian Shaoring felt that something was wrong. When she read to the end, she finally understood. This was clearly a breakup letter. Chapter 1159. She braced herself and finished reading it with great difficulty. Her expression was a little stiff. She held the letter in her hand and looked around, not knowing what to do. Qing Menjing, Linger, and Ling Qianxue also looked at each other and unconsciously avoided Tian Tang's eyes. They didn't know what to say. The atmosphere in the room suddenly became a little awkward and stagnant. Xiao Chen stood there with a calm face, without the slightest expression of displeasure or helplessness. In his opinion, Tang Tang must have her own difficulties to do so. Perhaps due to the special situation at that time, Tang Tang was forced to make this decision. Xiao Chen never believed that she would break up with him out of sincerity. I remember, just when Xiao Chen and others fell into silence, a voice that was very familiar to Xiao Chen suddenly sounded in the room, but he hadn't heard it for a long time. This voice suddenly broke the awkward atmosphere. Everyone turned to look and saw that Tang Tang had sat up from the bed. 2 teardrops ran down her white cheeks. She stared at Xiao Chen and said with a trembling voice, "Xiao Chen, I remember everything." "Tang Tang." Everyone exclaimed in unison. "Are you okay?" Xiao Chen immediately ran over, reached out his hands excitedly, and held Tang Tang in his arms. "Oh, I'm fine." Tang Tang was held in Xiao Chen's arms. She felt warm and moved and said with a choked voice. Xiao Chen held Tang Tang tightly for a while before he released her. He carefully checked her condition with his primordial qi and found that there was no problem, so he was relieved. "Oh, I'm sorry, Xiao Chen. I was in a hurry to save my parents and I was worried that if you knew the situation, you wouldn't be able to control yourself and do something impulsive, so I broke up with you. I hope you can forgive me." Tang Tang leaned on Xiao Chen's shoulder and said intermittently with tears streaming down her face. "Silly girl, it's not your fault. Why would I blame you? Xiao Qin shook his head slightly and comforted Tang Tang softly for a while. He reached out and wiped away the tears on her face. After a while, Tang Tang's emotions finally calmed down. Qing Minjing, who was standing next to her, asked incredulously, Tang Tang, how did you wake up? Do you know that you've been unconscious for several days? I don't know. Since I saw Xiao Chen and... Tang Tang turned her head to look at Tian Suruan, who was standing there in a daze, and continued, and this Miss Tian Suruan, we didn't wear clothes. Ahem, after that, my head has been in a daze and it's very painful. It doesn't seem like I'm asleep, but I just can't wake up. But I can still hear what you're talking about. Tian Suruan blushed a little and explained with embarrassment that Sister Suruan was cultivating at that time. It's not what you think. It's okay, I know. Tang Tang shook her head and said with a wry smile, I tried several times but I couldn't wake up after struggling. Until I heard someone mention the couple's chef's suit and the letter I left for Xiao Chen was read aloud. That's when I suddenly woke up. I really didn't expect that Tian Suruan would unintentionally read the breakup letter you left, and she actually made a great contribution. Xiao Chen laughed and joked. He suddenly remembered that he had once read a news article about a patient suffering from temporary amnesia. After being unintentionally stimulated, she recovered her original memory. He thought it was a coincidence, but it turned out to be true for Tang Tang. Yeah. It's all thanks to Sister Suruan. Tang Tang, you have to treat me to a meal. Tian Suruan cheered. If I hadn't found the chef's suit and read the letter, God knows how long you'd have slept. Tian Suruan waved the letter in her hand as she spoke. She was so happy that she almost danced with joy. However, when she saw Qing Minjing and the other girls shooting her looks of disdain, she quickly retracted her posture and stuck out her tongue in embarrassment. No problem. I can treat you to breakfast later. Tofu pudding, soy milk, fried dough sticks and fried cakes. You can eat whatever you want. You can eat as much as you want. Tang Tang was amused by Tian Suruan's carefree character. The haze in her heart dissipated a lot, and she gradually returned to her previous cheerful character. Eat. You only know how to eat. Qing Minjing angrily poked Tian Sauer's head and rolled her eyes to the sky. She walked to the bedside, took Tang Tang's hand and said softly, Tang Tang, ignore her. It's good that you can wake up safely now. Xiao Chen was so worried about you that he didn't sleep for a few days. Now that he finally saw that you're fine, everyone can be more at ease. Thank you, Minjing. Thank you, Xiao Chen. Tang Tang lowered her head guiltily. She felt bad when she thought of how selfish she was to break up with Xiao Chen for her own purpose. Well, we're all on the same side. Don't be so polite. Xiao Chen rubbed Tang Tang's head and pointed at the people in the room one by one. Let me introduce you. You know Qing Minjing. That weird girl next to her is called Tian Sauerso. You should already know her. There's also Ling Er and Ling Qianxue. They are, After Xiao Chen introduced the names of the women, he suddenly paused. For a moment he didn't know how to introduce them. If it had been someone else, Xiao Chen wouldn't have needed to spend so much effort to introduce them in detail. After all, anyone with a discerning eye would be able to tell the relationship between Xiao Chen and Qing Minjing and the other girls. But Tang Tang was different. The relationship between Xiao Chen and her was very subtle. They were boyfriend and girlfriend, but there was no substantial progress. What if they were not? But they had almost experienced everything except for the substantial progress. When he realized this, even a thick-skinned Xiao Chen felt a little embarrassed. The words were on the tip of his tongue, but he didn't know what to say. Xiao Chen, I understand. Tang Tang suddenly broke the deadlock. She patted Xiao Chen's shoulder and made an expression that said, I understand. You understand? Xiao Chen was slightly stunned and looked at Tang Tang doubtfully. Although she felt a little uncomfortable in her heart, Tang Tang still looked careless and said straightforwardly, It seems that your cultivation is already very powerful. You can get so many beautiful girlfriends casually, and they all get along well with each other. It can be seen that you are very good. Chapter 1160. It's okay. Xiao Chen touched his nose. It seemed that Tang Tang really understood. However, he could naturally hear that Tang Tang's tone was a little strange. To avoid awkward silence, he quickly changed the topic. Actually, I'm not that powerful. I'm just at the Yuan, venerable level. And thanks to Jia Muzin, he brought me to the Jia family of the Inner Wuling. Otherwise, I might not have reached this level. What? Venerable? What kind of strength is that? Who is Jianghu? What kind of place is the Jia family of the inner Wulin? Tang Tang was confused and asked with a blank face. The information in her mind still stayed at the level of the outer Wulin. Could be said that she knew nothing about the inner Wulin. Venerable was a level that she had never encountered before. Oh, Venerable is the level after the Demon King and the Martial King. Xiaoqin remembered that Tang Tang had been confused for a long time, so he explained one by one. Jianghu is a classmate of mine when I was in college in Lan City. He is also the current young master of the Jia family. As for the Jia family, as he spoke, Xiaoqin found that if he simply explained Tang Tang's problem, he really couldn't understand it all at once. So he simply waved his hand and said, "Forget it. I'll tell you this. We are now in the inner Wulin. As for the inner Wulin." After that, Xiaoqin patiently explained everything that had happened recently, including the internal and external pugilistic world, the various clans and sects, and even the venerable realm that was about to open. He explained everything in detail. As for what happened after Tang Tang left, Xiaoqin didn't have time to talk about it. If he had to start from the beginning, it would probably take a few days and nights to finish. Although I'm still a little confused, I roughly understand it. I didn't expect you to be so powerful. Tang Tang nodded and said while looking at Xiaoqin. It's nothing. And you are now at the venerable realm. Xiaoqin shrugged and said to Tang Tang with a smile, in fact, these things are not particularly complicated. In the future, when you have more contact with it, you will naturally master it. Am I so powerful now? Why don't I feel anything? Tang Tang raised her little fist and looked left and right, with a look of disbelief. Xiaoqin smiled and didn't answer. He seemed to be more interested in Tang Tang's previous experience, so he asked, Tang Tang, where did you go after you left? Just now you said that you wanted to save your parents. What's going on? Sigh. It's a long story. If I were to go into detail, I think I could write a novel. Tang Tang sighed helplessly. She suddenly touched her shriveled belly and swallowed. She looked at Xiaoqin expectantly and asked, Do you have anything to eat here? I feel like I haven't eaten anything for a long time, and I haven't even had a drink of water. I really don't know how I survived until today. Yes. Tang Tang, wait for a moment. I'll get something to eat right away. Cheng Minjing immediately stood up and walked out. It didn't take long for her to bring a pot of water and a few plates of snacks, as well as some beautifully packaged fruits. She put them in front of Tang Tang and joked with a smile, Now Xiaoqin is a distinguished guest of the Jia family. We are all basking in his glory. Eat whatever you like. Thank you, Minjing. Tang Tang first thanked her and then secretly glanced at Cheng Minjing. She felt quite surprised. She didn't expect that Cheng Minjing had changed so much. She even ran out to get food for her in person. If it were in the past, it would be absolutely impossible. It was already good that this lady didn't laugh at her a few times. Don't be polite with me. Eat quickly if you're hungry. Cheng Minjing smiled slightly. She carefully poured a cup of water for Tang Tang, and then handed the snacks to her. Tang Tang naturally didn't decline modestly. She took it and began to eat. After eating and drinking to her heart's content, Tang Tang wiped her mouth in satisfaction. She simply tidied up the tableware, and then began to tell everyone about her previous experience. It turned out that when Tang Tang left the Shao family with the black-clothed woman, she was taken to a sect called the Five Poisons sect. The black-clothed woman kept her promise and really let Tang Tang see her parents. However, the two sides only met in a hurry. Before they could talk in detail, they were separated again. After that, they didn't contact each other again. Tang Tang was originally waiting to see her parents again. However, a few days later, a few people from the Five Poisons sect came, claiming to be from the Tang family. They said that Tang Tang was of the same origin as them, and that they were originally a family. Tang Tang's parents had already gone to the Tang family to acknowledge their ancestors, and now they wanted Tang Tang to follow them. Because those people from the Tang family had truthfully reported the identity of Tang Tang and her parents, the black-clothed woman from the Five Poisons sect also confirmed that there was no mistake. Tang Tang believed it to be true, and then followed those people for a long distance before arriving at the Tang family. After arriving at the Tang family, Tang Tang didn't even have the time to see her parents before she was ordered to inject a kind of medicine. It was said that it could assist her in cultivating the Five Poisons secret manual. At this time, Tang Tang also made a request. She said that she hoped to see her parents again. However, those people said that as long as she could inject the medicine and successfully cultivate the Five Poisons secret manual, she would be able to see her parents. In order to be able to replace her parents as soon as possible, Tang Tang agreed without thinking. However, after being injected with the medicine, she lost consciousness and sank into a chaotic state. During this period of time after that, her mind was controlled by someone, and she was constantly being ordered around. Tang Tang couldn't remember clearly what exactly happened during this period of time. 5 Poisons sect? What kind of sect is that? There doesn't seem to be such a sect in the inner Wulin. After listening to Tang Tang's narration, Xiaochen couldn't help but frown and murmur. If he wanted to understand the ins and outs of Tang Tang's matter, he must start from the source. The black-clothed woman that Tang Tang first came into contact with was from the 5 Poisons sect. However, Xiaochen thought for a long time, but still couldn't remember the location of this sect. Although there weren't many large sects in the inner Wulin, there were still many smaller sections. For example, Ling Er's Yin sect. These small sects were independent and rarely gathered together. If he really wanted to find them, it would be quite difficult. Moreover, even if he found the 5 Poisons sect, he would only be able to understand the situation. He still didn't know whether Tang Tang's parents were there or not. However, there was no other way at the moment. He could only first inquire about the specific location of the 5 Poisons sect, and then run over to see if there were any clues. Xiaochen, I remember that the 5 Poisons sect doesn't seem to be a sect in the inner Wulin. It should be in the outer Wulin. Ling Er said from the side. She usually stayed in the Yin sect for a long time, so she had a better understanding of these small sects that were scattered like stars in the sky. Chapter 1161. Oh, then do you know where its sect is? Xiaochen quickly asked. Its location seems to be. Ling Er held her chin and thought for a while. Suddenly she replied confidently, that's right, I remember now. The 5 Poisons sect is near the Green Rock sect. It's very easy to find. Oh, so it's from the outer martial world. I was wondering why it was so unfamiliar. A sneer appeared on the corner of Xiaochen's mouth. He stood up to stretch his muscles and then walked out the door. Xiaochen, where are you going? Tang Tang was shocked when she saw Xiaochen suddenly leave. She asked repeatedly. Tang Tang was now in an unfamiliar place. She was completely dependent on Xiaochen. If Xiaochen left just like that, she would be a little afraid. Xiaochen turned his head and smiled. Tang Tang, you stay in the Jia family and rest well. I'll go to the 5 Poisons sect now and bring your parents back. It'll also be good for your family to reunite. Wait, Xiaochen. Xiaochen walked out after he finished speaking. However, he hadn't taken a few steps when Tang Tang shouted and jumped off the bed to chase after him. What's wrong? Xiaochen saw Tang Tang pull his arm and asked with a little surprise. Tang Tang wouldn't let him go find her parents, right? Tang Tang said with a firm face, I'll go with you. You're not familiar with the surroundings of the 5 Poisons sect. It'll be easy for you to get lost. It'll be more convenient with me. Besides, you haven't seen what my parents look like. What if you get the wrong person? Xiaochen looked at Tang Tang and said with a little hesitation, but you've just woken up. I'm afraid that you. Before Xiaochen could finish speaking, Tang Tang waved her hand and joked with a smile. It's no problem. Have you forgotten? I'm also a half-step venerable expert. It was you who reminded me just now. Moreover, I felt weak because I was hungry. Now that I've eaten something to fill my stomach, I'm much better. That's right, Xiaochen, just bring her along. Otherwise, we won't be at ease if you're alone outside. Qing Minjing also chimed in. Tang Tang was the strongest among them. If she could go out with Xiaochen, they would feel more at ease. Then, all right. Xiaochen had no choice but to nod his head. You guys help me explain to young Master Rinyao. I'm going to look for Jianghu now. I still have to ask him how to get out of the inner martial world. After saying a few words to Qing Minjing and the other women, Xiaochen quickly left the yard with Tang Tang. Finding Jianghu in the study, Xiaochen briefly explained the purpose of his visit. Jianghu first congratulated Tang Tang for finally waking up, and then without saying anything he gave Xiaochen 2 tokens and told him that as long as he used the tokens, he could freely enter and exit the inner and outer martial arts world without any other restrictions. Before Xiaochen left, Jianghu warned him again that everyone would set off for the Venerable Realm in 2 days. He must return as soon as possible so that he could catch up with the main group. Xiaochen didn't hesitate when he heard this and immediately agreed. In any case, he was only going to the outer martial arts world to find 2 people. With Xiaochen's current cultivation, he simply didn't care about the 5 Poisons sect. Perhaps he could settle it in half a day, and he could even make it back in time for dinner. Standing in the courtyard of the Jia family, Xiaoqin took out his flying sword and pulled Tang Tang onto it. Along with the sound of breaking the air, the two of them sped towards the teleportation array. There were no obstructions at the teleportation array. The two of them very smoothly left the inner martial arts world and arrived near the Greenstone Mountain. Xiaoqin observed from the air for a while. With Tang Tang's guidance, he quickly found the location of the Five Poisons sect. Therefore he immediately drove his flying sword and flew in that direction. Bang! The flying sword had just landed on the ground when Xiaoqin took large strides forward and arrived in front of the Five Poisons sect's gate. He sized it up with a glance and immediately circulated his mental cultivation method. Then he heavily struck out with his palm. With one palm strike, the doors of the Five Poisons sect were smashed to smithereens. With a clang, it fell to the ground. Xiaoqin snorted coldly. He held the somewhat stunned Tang Tang's hand and swaggered in. Many disciples were cultivating in the large square behind the gate. They were all startled by the heavy sound and they all gathered around. Seeing Xiaoqin and Tang Tang walk in hand, a man who looked older among them suddenly jumped out. He should be the senior brother who was guiding the disciples in their cultivation. He pointed at Xiaoqin's nose and angrily cursed, "Who are you? You actually dare to trespass into the Five Poisons sect's important place? Are you all tired of living? What's the point of saying so much nonsense? This young master can't be bothered to talk nonsense with an errand boy like you. Hurry up and call the Five Poisons sect leader out. This young master has something to ask him." Xiaoqin glanced at him and stood proudly on the spot. He impatiently waved his hand and said, with Xiaoqin's current strength, he really couldn't chat with these low-level cultivators in front of him. Therefore he simply disdained these people. However, although he thought this way, some people didn't think so. "Fuck your grandpa. A yellow-haired brat has come to the Five Poisons sect to act cool. You're courting death." The tall man was obviously infuriated by Xiaoqin. His whole body shook, and he revealed the cultivation of a devil general paragon. He flew towards Xiaoqin and struck out with his palm, baring his fangs and brandishing his claws. "Humph, you overestimate yourself." Xiaoqin shook his head disinterestedly and even yawned loudly. When the wind from the palm had just touched him, the tall man's face had already revealed a cruel smile. Xiaoqin lazily raised his hand and casually waved it in the air. Ah! The tall man didn't understand what had happened when he felt as if he had been heavily hit by something. His entire body was sent flying and fiercely smashed into a stone pillar not far away. Kacha! The stone pillar received a powerful impact and in an instant, a few cracks appeared on it. All the meridians in the tall man's body had been broken and he slid to the ground like a noodle. After spitting out a mouthful of blood, he stopped breathing. Originally, Xiaoqin didn't want to casually kill people. However, when the man had attacked, he had directly aimed at Xiaoqin's heart. Moreover, there was a faint trace of poison in his aura. If Xiaoqin's strength was low and he was hit by this palm, although he wouldn't die immediately, he would definitely be attacked by the poisonous gas. At that time he would be in a state where he could neither live nor die. He could only allow the other party to torture him. Such a vicious person, Xiaoqin couldn't be bothered to spare his life. He would just kill him with a single palm strike. After the tall man fell to the ground, the scene became extremely quiet. The surrounding Five Poisons sect disciples all had stunned expressions. Originally, they had wanted to follow their senior brother and show off their prowess. However, they didn't expect that the person who had come was actually so powerful. At this time, the thought of retreating had already sprouted in their hearts. Some of the smarter disciples had already quietly moved backwards. Chapter 1162. You guys don't just stand there. This young master doesn't have much time and I still have to rush home for dinner. Hurry up and find the sect leader, or else I'll tear down your Five Poisons sect. Xiaoqin looked at the sky and impatiently urged. Xiaoqin originally planned to find the black-clothed woman directly, but after asking Tang Tang didn't know her name, so he could only find the sect leader to save a lot of trouble. Seeing the Five Poisons sect's disciples flee one after another towards the backyard, probably to find their sect leader, Tang Tang was a little worried as she pulled on Xiaoqin's sleeve and asked, "Xiaoqin, aren't we being too arrogant by doing this? After all, the Five Poisons sect doesn't seem to be easy to provoke. If that sect leader is really powerful, what are we going to do?" "Silly Tang Tang, you think too highly of them." Xiaoqin rubbed Tang Tang's head and disdainfully looked at the Five Poisons sect's main hall and said, Even the sect leader of the #1 sect in the inner martial arts world, Situ Wuji, was beaten to a pulp by me. This 5-poison sect is just a small sect in the outer martial arts world. If I want to kill them, it's just a matter of minutes. Seeing that Tang Tang was still a little worried, Xiaoqin said with a smile, Tang Tang, don't forget that you are now at the level of a half-step venerable. You can walk unhindered in the inner martial arts world. Right now, we are in the outer martial arts world. If you just casually show your strength, you can scare them away and send them back to where they came from, okay? Don't be so unconfident. Oh. Just as Tang Tang agreed, she saw a group of people walking over from afar. It seemed that the 5-poison sect's disciples had returned with 2 people. When they got closer, they could see clearly that it was a man and a woman. One of them was an old man with a gloomy face and a shiny bald head. He looked to be around 70 or 80 years old, but he walked with vigor and vigor. He was like a hawk and looked like a wolf. He didn't look old at all. Behind the old man was a middle-aged woman. Although she looked middle-aged, she was still attractive. She was dressed rather plainly, but her clothes were a little messy. Her face was flushed, and her hair seemed to have been tied up in a hurry, looking a little messy. Xiaoqin glanced at them and immediately determined that the old man should be the sect leader, but he didn't know who the middle-aged woman was. However, looking at her appearance, he guessed that the 2 of them had taken advantage of the time when the disciples were training to fool around in the backyard. At this time they were abruptly interrupted, so they were in a very bad mood. Xiaoqin, this woman is the woman in black I mentioned to you before. Tang Tang stood behind Xiaoqin and whispered. Then, she carefully sized up the middle-aged woman and nodded with even more certainty. That's right, she was the one who brought me to the 5-poison sect. At this time, the middle-aged woman also saw Tang Tang. A look of surprise flashed through her eyes. Although she was a little puzzled as to why this little girl had returned, she didn't point it out right away. He raised his head to look at the smashed door, then lowered his head to look at the old man who had long since died. The bald sect leader suspiciously sized up Xiaoqin for a while, but he didn't immediately attack him. Instead, with a cold expression, he said in a deep voice, Young man, just who are you? Do you know what the consequences of causing trouble in the 5-poison sect are? It's her, right? Xiaoqin didn't pay attention to the bald sect leader's question at all. Instead, he turned his head to confirm with Tang Tang. When he saw Tang Tang nod, he waved his hand and said, Damn Baldy, there's nothing for you to do here for now. Go play somewhere else. Get that loose woman behind you to quickly roll over here. I have something to ask her. You. The middle-aged woman's face flushed red. She fiercely glared at Xiaoqin. She hurriedly tidied up her clothes and beautiful hair. She gritted her teeth and said, Sect leader Cho, this kid's mouth is full of nonsense. Please allow me to kill him. Seeing that the middle-aged woman was about to rush forward, sect leader Cho immediately stopped her and shook his head slightly. Although he was also very displeased, sect leader Cho still forcefully suppressed the anger in his heart. He patiently said, Kid, let this old man give you a word of advice. Don't be too ruthless with your words. Do you think that after killing my disciple and smashing my 5-poison sect's door, you can still escape unscathed today? Actually, sect leader Cho was still more rational. As the sect leader, he naturally wouldn't be as impulsive as his disciple. Although the 5-poison sect scale in the martial arts world wasn't large, everyone in the sect was an expert in using poison. Since this kid in front of him dared to directly break into the sect's door, it would be easy for him to destroy the door with one palm. However, his own eldest disciple had the strength of a devil general great perfection. Yet he could actually easily kill him with one palm. Moreover, he didn't seem to be injured at all. Based on this point alone, sect leader Cho felt that this kid wasn't simple. To be cautious, he planned to first probe Xiaoqin's strength before considering the follow-up. This young master doesn't have the time to talk nonsense with you guys. Xiaoqin's patience was basically running out. He simply circulated his mental cultivation method and directly revealed the strength of a venerable. As soon as the venerable's coercion was released, sect leader Cho and the middle-aged woman immediately turned pale. After the coercion spread out, the disciples who were hiding in the distance couldn't help but kneel on the ground with a plop. Their foreheads were covered in cold sweat, and they simply couldn't muster up any thoughts of resisting. Xiaoqin snorted coldly and said to the middle-aged woman, Stop putting on an act in front of this young master. Where did you take Tang Tang's parents to? Hurry up and tell me. If you tell me the truth, maybe this young master is in a good mood and will let you live. Otherwise, venerable? Venerable. You are a venerable. Sect leader Cho stuttered for a long time and couldn't speak clearly. He had been scared silly. Although he only had the strength of a devil general at the peak, he could be regarded as a relatively powerful character in the outside martial arts world. The most powerful people he had seen in the outside martial arts world were Martial King and Devil King masters. As for the legendary Venerable, he only had admiration and couldn't have the slightest provocation. He never thought that this young junior in front of him could actually reach this realm. Was he a genius? The world was changing too fast. The middle-aged woman's face turned pale and then green. She was so surprised that she couldn't close her mouth. She thought that after the Tang family took Tang Tang away, there would be nothing left for her. She didn't expect that after so long she actually brought back such a powerful person. If she had known that Tang Tang had this kind of background, she wouldn't have helped the Tang family find her. Alas, what a blunder. What do you mean by this and that? Stop pretending. If it weren't for the fact that I don't hit women, you would have died several times today. Hurry up and bring Tang Tang's parents out. This young master is in a hurry. Xiao Qin looked at the middle-aged woman coldly and said word by word. Chapter 1163. He was becoming more and more impatient. After all, he came to the Five Poison sect to save people. But these two idiots, he didn't know what was wrong with their brains. They were actually so long-winded. Hero, I'll tell you the truth. Tang Tang's parents are no longer in the Five Poison sect. Not long after Tang Tang was taken away by the Tang family, her parents were also taken away by the Tang family. Feeling the huge pressure that Xiao Qin emitted towards her, the middle-aged woman's body trembled like a leaf in the wind. She trembled and said, "Really?" Xiao Qin glared at the middle-aged woman. Seeing that she was so scared that she almost knelt on the ground, he actually believed it a little. But he still asked fiercely, why did the Tang family take them away? Did they take them to do experiments or did they have other intentions? Hurry up and tell me. I don't know either. I'm just a small fry in a small sect in the outer martial arts world. The Tang family is a large family in the inner martial arts world. Usually, I have to obediently do things according to their orders. How would I dare to ask so many questions? The middle-aged woman said with a sad face. Where did her original charm go? At this time she was also complaining in her heart. On one hand it was the Tang family, one of the three big families in the inner martial arts world. She absolutely could not afford to offend them. But on the other hand, the young man in front of her didn't look like someone to be trifled with. Why was she so unlucky to get into this kind of trouble for no reason? Hero, about Tang Tang's parents, this old man also knows a thing or two. Sect leader Chiu said weakly, they were indeed taken away by the Tang family. If you really don't believe me, you can search the Five Poison sect. Yun Lu really didn't lie. Sect leader Chiu was really panicking. He even unconsciously used honorifics when addressing Xiao Qin. Obviously, he was very afraid that Xiao Qin would kill him in a fit of anger. There's no need to search. I have my own ways to verify what you said. Xiao Qin said lightly. Straightening his body, Xiao Qin released his divine sense and covered the entire Five Poison sect. He really did not discover the existence of any middle-aged man. Even the people locked up in the dungeon were all young disciples. It was likely that they had done something wrong, which was why they were locked up there. The oldest middle-aged man was probably this sect leader Chiu and Yun Lu. Xiao Qin, what's wrong? Tang Tang waited for a while. Seeing that Xiao Qin stood there with his eyes slightly closed and didn't move for a long time, she gently patted his shoulder and asked with a worried look. Oh, it's nothing. I just checked. Your parents are indeed not in the Five Poison sect. It seems that we can only go ask the Tang family. Xiao Qin retracted his divine sense and looked at Tang Tang as he explained. Well, there's nothing I can do. Tang Tang didn't know why Xiao Qin could find out about her parents just by standing there, but she didn't ask because she had unreserved trust in Xiao Qin. Then let's go? Tang Tang thought about it and asked Xiao Qin. And wait for me for a moment. Xiao Qin nodded and turned to the middle-aged woman named Yun Lu and asked, who was the Tang family member who contacted you at that time and took Tang Tang's parents away? What's his name? If you say you don't know, do you believe that I won't let you live to see tomorrow's sun? I remember. Yun Lu trembled in fright and nodded repeatedly. She frowned and said, he seems to be called Tang Qian. What? Tang Qian what? Hurry up and think. Don't let the hero wait. Sect leader Chiu was anxious at the side. Why are you playing amnesia at this time? Are you trying to kill everyone? Yunlu suddenly slapped her forehead and said with a face of sudden realization, "That's right. I remember. His name is Tang Qianqi. According to him, he is young Master Tang's right-hand man. He seems to be quite arrogant." "Oh, Tang Qianqi, right? I thought it was that idiot Tang Qianling who came personally. That's easy to deal with." Xiao Qin nodded with understanding. Since Tang's parents were not here, he didn't want to stay any longer. He directly took out his flying sword and flew away with Tang in his arms. Dumbfounded, they watched Xiao Qin and Tang gradually fly away on their flying swords. Sect leader Qiu and Yunlu did not come to their senses for a long time. What magic weapons were they stepping on? Flying swords? This kind of treasure that could only be seen in books, they actually saw it with their own eyes today. Knowing that the figures of Xiao Qin and Tang had disappeared, the two of them were relieved, but at the same time, a sense of powerlessness and fear arose in their hearts. That young man not only had such profound strength, but also had such a powerful treasure. They thought that he must be the young master of an inner Wulian family with a profound background. Fortunately, they had not been impulsive and rashly fought with him just now. Otherwise, they might have become two cold corpses. "Damn it, it's all your fault, bitch." Sect leader Qiu turned his head and looked at Yunlu with resentment. He scolded, "What a bad taste. You actually deceived Tang. You didn't investigate whether there was such a dangerous person behind her. Do you know that the Five Poison sect was almost destroyed because of you today?" Perhaps he still felt angry. After scolding, sect leader Qiu raised his hand and slapped Yunlu hard in the face. Seeing that there was a palm print on her face instantly, he felt much better. "Sect leader, if I had known that Tang knew such a powerful person, how could I have thought about her?" Yunlu covered her bruised cheek and did not dare to argue. Instead, she said with a bitter face, "What should we do next, sect leader? Should we tell the Tang family about this and let them help us solve it?" Nonsense again. Sect leader Qiu was about to explode. He scolded her, "Are you out of your mind? Why do you ask such a question? Hurry up and give Tang Qianqi a call to report the situation here. Otherwise, when the Tang family blames us, neither of us will have a good time." Whether it was that young man or the Tang family, the Five Poison sect could not afford to offend them. Now sect leader Qiu could only hope that the Tang family could get rid of that monster, Xiao Qin. However, to their surprise, Yunlu took out her phone and searched for a long time before she found that she did not leave Tang Qianqi's phone number. In desperation, she had to choose to call another person in the Tang family who was in charge of this work. After the person in charge learned of the situation, he was also very shocked. He hung up the phone with Yunlu and immediately dialed Tang Qianqi's number. But strangely, no one answered Tang Qianqi's phone for a long time. The person in charge called several times, but there was no response. He had to run to the place where Tang Qianqi lived, but he also found no trace of him. Chapter 1164. After thinking about it, the person in charge simply went to report to Tang Qianling. Unexpectedly, even the young master of the family, Tang Qianling's room was also empty. The person in charge didn't have Tang Qianling's mobile phone number. In desperation, he could only send his servants to search for Tang Qianqi and Tang Qianling, hoping to convey the news to them as soon as possible. For a time, the entire Tang family's courtyard was in chaos. The servants came and went, running everywhere, but they couldn't find the whereabouts of the two people. A few hours later, Xiao Qin and Tang rode their flying swords to the sky above the Tang family's residence. Xiao Qin first released his divine sense to check the location of Tang Qianqi. After all, the Tang family was a big family with a lot of experts in it. He didn't dare to take Tang and rush in directly. However, Xiao Qin couldn't find any trace of Tang Qianqi even after searching the entire Tang family. Standing in the air and thinking for a while, Xiao Qin suddenly thought that these big families usually built some secret passages to store precious treasures of heaven and earth, or used them as air raid shelters to avoid the pursuit of enemies. Maybe Tang Qianqi was in such a place? With this thought in mind, Xiao Qin simply expanded the range of his divine sense and explored outside again. Anyway, since he broke through to the nascent soul stage, the range of his divine sense had been greatly expanded, so he didn't have to worry about it at all. As expected, when Xiao Qin explored a cave in the mountain behind the Tang family's residence, he finally found Tang Qianqi. Tang Qianqi was standing outside the cave at this time, and there seemed to be someone hiding in the cave. Xiao Chen took a closer look and found that it was Tang Qianling hiding inside. At this time, his eyes were closed and he seemed to be practicing some kind of secret technique. Just when Xiao Chen was about to take back his divine sense and fly over directly, he suddenly heard Tang Qianqi's voice. What the F***ck? It's not that I want to say this, but this young Master Ling really has nothing better to do. Why would he come to such a godforsaken place for no reason and cultivate some crappy 5 poison secret manual? Tang Qianqi grumbled to himself while shielding himself from the scorching sun. The place where Tang Qianling cultivated was a certain distance away from the entrance of the cave, so even if Tang Qianqi sang loudly, he would not be able to hear him. Tang Qianqi was certain of this, so he cursed unscrupulously. Old Patriarch has already warned him over and over again, but not only did he not listen, he even forced me to come here to protect him. This trip here, I'm about to be cooked. It turned out that Tang Qianling had been cultivating in his own room in the Tang clan. However, ever since he discovered a hidden cave in the back mountain, he immediately decided to move his cultivation base here. The reason was also very simple. The Tang family master didn't approve of Tang Qianling practicing the 5 poison secret technique. After all, the Tang family was considered a righteous family, and this 5 poison secret technique belonged to the unorthodox devil cultivators. As the young master of the family, Tang Qianling actually practiced this kind of devil cultivator secret technique. If word got out, it would be a great hindrance to the family's reputation. Previously, when Tang Qianling resolutely abandoned the Tang clan's mental cultivation method and switched to cultivating the 5 poisons secret manual, the Tang clan's patriarch accidentally found out about it. He was so angry that not only did he scold Tang Qianling, but he also almost beat him to death. However, what made the Tang family master even angrier was that Tang Qianling still insisted on doing things his own way. He felt that the Tang family's mental cultivation method was no match for the 5 poison secret technique. No matter how the Tang family master tried to persuade him, even if he used the family law on him, he couldn't change his determination at all. Tang Qianling's courage in practicing the 5 poison secret technique was so great that even if the Tang family master threatened to abolish his position as the young master of the family if he continued to practice, he still refused to give up. However, he also refused to give up the position of the young master of the family that he had worked so hard to get. In the end, he could only choose to hide here and practice in secret. Hello, little Qi. What are you doing here with your master on such a hot day? Are you preparing to put on a melodramatic love story? Just as Tang Qianqi was feeling gloomy, he suddenly heard a familiar voice coming from the sky. Tang Qianqi was startled. He immediately looked up and saw Xiao Chen descending from the sky with Tang Tang. They jumped off the flying sword and looked at him with a smile. Xiao Chen. How did you know I was here? Tang Qianqi jumped up and took a few steps back, looking at Xiao Chen in fear. Why do you ask so many questions? Xiao Chen stared at Tang Qianqi, which immediately scared him. You're here to find our young master, aren't you? He's inside. I'll call him for you. Tang Qianqi's legs were a little weak, but he still walked toward the entrance of the cave. Stop. Xiao Chen suddenly spoke. He walked behind the trembling Tang Qianqi and said coldly, Don't call me. I'm here to find you today. Find me? Tang Qianqi was startled. When he saw Xiao Chen turn in front of him, he quickly asked in a flattering tone, What can I do for you, Hero Xiao? I've brought someone to see you. You might as well turn around and have a look. Xiao Chen smiled faintly and pointed behind Tang Qianqi. Tang Qianqi plucked up the courage to turn his head and look behind him. Suddenly, he straightened up and pointed at Tang Tang with a surprised face asking, Didn't she take the potion and be controlled? Why does she look fine now? Isn't it simple? Tang Tang has been cured by me. I came to look for you today because of her. Xiao Chen said coldly. I didn't drug her. Hero Xiao, are you sure you're not mistaken? Tang Qianqi was stunned and asked tentatively. It's not about the drug. There's another important thing. You'd better tell me honestly, otherwise? Xiao Chen snorted and made a you-know expression. Another thing? Tang Qianqi asked. When he saw Xiao Chen staring at him with a faint smile, he immediately squeezed out a smile that was uglier than crying. Okay. Tell me what it is. As long as I know it, I'll tell you. I won't lie. After that, Tang Qianqi peeked at the cave behind him and prayed silently in his heart. He hoped that Tang Qianling could finish his cultivation and come out soon. He couldn't keep Xiao Chen for long. If Xiao Chen really did something, not only would he be finished, but Tang Qianling would also be finished in minutes. It's a very simple thing. Xiao Qin folded his arms in front of his chest and looked down at Tang Qianqi. He said with no expression, "A while ago you went to the Five Poisons sect in the outer martial arts world, didn't you? As long as you tell me honestly where you took Tang Tang's parents, I won't embarrass you." Chapter 1165. Ah. Tang Qianqi was stunned and scratched his head in confusion. He didn't expect Xiao Qin to ask such a question. What ah? You don't want to say it, do you? Xiao Qin raised his eyebrows and suddenly exuded a murderous aura. No. I want to think about it. Tang Qianqi was about to cry. Who were Tang Tang's parents? He had been to the Five Poisons sect so many times and brought back dozens of people, if not hundreds. Why would he pay attention to so many people? However, he naturally didn't dare to say that to Xiao Qin. He could only ask carefully, "Well, Hero Xiao, may I ask what are the names of Tang Tang's parents?" "My father's name is Tang Weijun and my mother's name is Guxiuling." Tang Tang stared at Tang Qianqi and said lightly, "They are nothing special. They are just two ordinary cultivators." Speaking of her parents, Tang Tang couldn't help but sigh secretly. She was sad and at a loss. She only knew that her parents were two extremely ordinary cultivators of the Tang family in the secular world. Usually, they didn't have a particularly outstanding performance in the family. In the outer Wulin, they must be even more ordinary. Why would they be targeted by the Five Poison sect in the outer Wulin and then taken away? She couldn't figure it out. Tang Weiju. Guxiuling. After hearing these two names, Tang Qianqi racked his brain to try to recall, but he couldn't remember. These two names were too ordinary. There was no clue at all. You can't remember, right? Do you want me to help you? Xiao Qin asked with a smile. Tang Qianqi shivered for no reason. He quickly waved his hand and said, No. Miss Tang, can you describe their appearance? Let me see if I have any impression of them. Tang Tang frowned. She grew up with her grandfather, Tang Fangbai. She had seen her parents not long ago, so she didn't have a deep impression of them. After thinking carefully, she suddenly said, "Oh, my mother has a birthmark on her left forehead. If you have seen her, it should be easy to recognize." I remember. When Tang Qianqi heard this, his mind suddenly flashed. He patted his thigh and said, "The birthmark on your mother's forehead, is it red and a little oval?" Yes. You met her? Where are they now? Finally, Tang Tang got the news about her parents. She was so excited that she strode forward, grabbed Tang Qianqi's collar and shook him hard. Cough. Don't be anxious. Cough. Tang Qianqi was caught off guard, and he didn't even have the slightest room to resist. He was instantly choked to the point he saw stars, and he was slightly unable to catch his breath. Tang Tang first loosened her hand a little and then asked eagerly, "Hurry up. Where did you take them? Are they still alive?" Cough. Tang Qianqi gasped for breath. He really didn't expect this little girl to be so strong. Fearing that she would attack him again, he immediately explained, At that time, I was responsible for sending them to Tianyu Mine and personally handed them over to the person in charge there, who was called Jia Yutian. As for what happened after that, I don't know." "Jia Yutian? That old fellow has already been killed by me. Don't tell me you're trying to trick me?" Xiao Qin frowned and looked coldly at Tang Qianqi. Tang Tang's face also darkened, and she increased the strength of her hand. "No way. How dare I fool you, Master Xiao?" Cough. Tang Qianqi sped up and put on the most sincere expression he felt. Miss Tang Tang's parents were indeed sent to Tianyu Mine. If you don't believe me, you can go to the mine and see for yourself. They must be there. At this time, Tang Qianqi's face had already turned red. If Tang Tang didn't let go, he felt that he would die of lack of oxygen. "Oh, of course I don't believe you." Xiao Qin shrugged and gently held Tang Tang's arm. He said softly with a smile, "Tang Tang, be a good girl. Let go of me first. We'll take this bastard to the heavenly jade mine. When the two sides confront each other, the truth will be revealed." "Oh, okay. That's the only way." Tang Tang took a few deep breaths to calm her impatience, and then nodded helplessly. She glared at Tang Qianqi, loosened his collar, and silently stood beside Xiao Qin. "Oh, I have to go too? But I still have a task." Tang Qianqi began to complain and refuse, but he was grabbed by a strong force, and then he was dragged out involuntarily. He was still screaming in pain. "Ouch, Master Xiao, don't use too much strength. My neck is almost broken." It hurts. He originally thought that it would be over after he gave the order, but he didn't expect that he would be taken away by Xiao Qin directly by the neck. Tang Qianqi now thought, why hasn't Tang Qianling come out from the cave yet? Whoosh! The flying sword made a sharp sound and rushed in the direction of Tianyu Mine. During this period, Tang Qianqi's wailing was mixed with it from time to time. He was held by the neck by Xiao Qin with his feet suspended in the air. Below him was the high altitude where he couldn't see the ground clearly. Tang Qianqi felt that he might fall at any time, but he dared not complain. His heart was about to jump out of his throat. He could only close his eyes tightly. From time to time, the strong wind hit his face and he involuntarily screamed. After a while, Tang Qianling finally finished his cultivation and slowly walked out of the cave. He looked around and didn't find any trace of Tang Qianqi. He called out a few times but there was no response. He suddenly felt a little unhappy, thinking that Tang Qianqi must be lazy and afraid of the sun, so he slipped home to rest. He cursed in his heart and walked in the direction of the Tang family. When they arrived at Tianyu Mine, Xiao Qin first went to say hello to Jia Hongyong, and then took Tang Tang and Tang Qianqi to the room where the information was stored. He turned on the computer and skillfully entered the names of Tang Tang's parents. The computer quickly showed the results. Tang Tang's parents were listed, and the information included their blood type, cultivation, and physical condition. However, Xiao Qin and Tang Tang couldn't be happy, because in the recent movements, at the bottom of the information, it was clearly stated that Tang Tang's parents were taken away by Jia Yubian a few months ago and were no longer in Tianyu Mine. But the information did not record where they went. Just like Xiao Chen's father and Cheng Menjing's uncle, they were taken away and never heard from again. The whole information room was very quiet for a while. Tang Tang looked disappointed and lonely, but Tang Qianqi was relieved. Now they knew he didn't lie, so they should let him go, right? Chapter 1166. Hey, what are you waiting for? Xiao Qin slapped Tang Qianqi's head directly and asked fiercely, where did Turtle Whip take my parents? Tang Qianling colluded with Turtle Whip in private, so you must know a lot of inside information, right? Ouch. Tang Qianqi was just feeling lucky, but in the blink of an eye, he was slapped so hard that he saw stars. He covered his head and wailed a few times, then said bitterly, Hero Xiao I don't know. It's all done by young Master Ling and Jia Yubian. I'm just an errand boy. How can I know so much? Xiao Qin, since this guy doesn't know anything, it's useless to keep him alive. Why don't you just kill him? Tang Tang glared at Tang Qianqi and said in a cold tone. Tang Qianqi was obviously lying. As Tang Qianling's henchman, how could he not know anything? This kind of flatterer cherished his life the most. As long as he threatened him, he would confess faster than anyone else. Oh, no problem. I'm good at killing people. Xiao Qin immediately understood Tang Tang's intention. He grabbed Tang Qianling's neck and slowly lifted him into the air. Mercy, mercy. Hero Xiao. I really, don't know. Tang Qianqi said intermittently. He had been grabbed several times today, but Tang Qianqi could clearly feel that Xiao Qin was serious this time. Xiao Qin sneered and said, my wife asked me to kill you. I don't care if you know it or not. But I've always been a kind person. I can allow you to choose a way to die. Anyway, it's your last request before you die, and I can definitely satisfy it. Tell me, how do you want to die? Hearing Xiao Qin call her wife in front of outsiders, Tang Tang could not help but blush. She looked at him deeply, and a sweet feeling arose in her heart. So, Hero Xiao, don't think that I usually do things for Tang Qianling, but it's just some trivial and tiring work. Tang Qianqi gasped and tried his best to explain. I just accidentally learned that the three families and awakening sect seem to have a little relationship. Don't fool me. Aren't the three families righteous? How could they have anything to do with awakening sect? Xiao Qin immediately asked. When he heard Tang Qianqi's words just now, a thought flashed through Xiao Qin's mind, but it disappeared in a flash. He couldn't catch it, so he had to follow Tang Qianqi's words and asked. I just eavesdropped on young Master Ling's conversation with others. He said that the three families and awakening sect have a cooperative relationship. He didn't say the specifics. Tang Qianqi was lifted high and he struggled to say, although I heard it, I dare not ask more. I can only listen to young Master Ling's instructions. What he asks me to do, I will do it. Hero Xiao, spare my life. Xiao Qin thought for a while and there was a vague idea in his mind. But it was obviously not a good time to think deeply. He looked at Tang Chenchi in his hand and said, "Well, since you are so pitiful, then as long as you answer my question honestly, I won't kill you." After saying that, Xiao Chen loosened his fingers and threw Tang Chenchi to the ground with a plop. He looked down at him coldly. Sure. Go ahead and ask. As long as I know, I will definitely answer truthfully." Tang Chenchi was confused by the fall, and he couldn't even see where the door was. He could only feel Xiao Chen's indifferent eyes staring at him, and he immediately nodded in agreement. "You were guarding outside the cave before because Tang Chenchi was inside, right?" Although Xiao Chen used a question, he didn't intend to let Tang Chenchi deny it. He continued straightforwardly, "What was he doing sneakily inside? Was he practicing the 5 Poisons secret manual? Why did he hide in the cave to practice?" Yes. He was practicing inside. There seemed to be more than one question in Tang Chenchi's mind, but he didn't dare to neglect it. He hurriedly explained, "The reason is that the head of the Tang family is very opposed to young Master Ling practicing the 5 Poisons secret manual. After all, it is a kind of demonic mental cultivation method, and our Tang family is a righteous family. If there is a demonic cultivator, I am afraid that we will be laughed at by people in the martial arts world. So he had no choice but to hide and practice and let me help him keep watch outside." Xiao Chen nodded with understanding and looked at Tang Tang inquiringly. Tang waved her hand and motioned to Xiao Chen to make the decision. "Well, since you are willing to tell the truth and your attitude is sincere, then I will make the decision for my wife. You can go away." Xiao Chen waved his hand as if he was dismissing a beggar. Then he turned around, took Tang to the side, and whispered to discuss what to do next. Xiao Chen didn't let Tang Chenchi go because he was soft-hearted, but the clues were not clear enough. If he killed Tang Chenchi today, it was easy to arouse the Tang family's vigilance. It was better to let him go back and report. Maybe Tang Chenling would play some stupid tricks in panic so that he could follow the clues to find the melon. Yes, thank you, Master Xiao. Thank you, Miss Tang. I will go now." Tang Chenchi was overjoyed. He quickly stood up and ran out of the door. But as soon as he ran out of the door, Tang Chenchi was dumbfounded. Looking at the endless Chanyu mine, he complained in his heart. How can I go back?" Looking at the guards around him who stared at him with a dark face, Tang Chenchi directly dispelled the idea of borrowing a car from them. He shook his head and ran in the direction of the Tang family's house. Although he wanted to know how Tang woke up, Tang Chenchi didn't have the courage to ask. He could only go back to report the news to Tang Chenling first, and then discuss the next plan. Xiao Chen and Tang discussed for a long time in the data room. They sorted out the clues they had obtained so far. The consensus they could reach was that the whole thing should have a great relationship with Awakened Sect. Not to mention that the drug that controlled Tang was developed by Awakened Sect. Even Jia Yubian, who took away Xiao Chen's father, Tang's parents, and Qing Minjing's uncle, had a very close relationship with Awakened Sect. Now Tang Chenchi also confessed that the 3 families had cooperation with Awakened Sect. Xiao Chen faintly felt that there seemed to be a huge conspiracy in it. Maybe his elders had been taken away by Awakened Sect. But what was Awakened Sect's purpose in doing this? Xiao Chen wanted to run directly to Awakened Sect to find the whereabouts of Tang's parents. Tang had been obedient to him before, but this time she didn't agree with him. Chapter 1167. Tang's reason was also very simple. First, she felt that the results of their discussion were only speculations. Her parents might not be an open heaven gate. After all, there was no reliable source of information. Second, Tang was also worried that if Xiao Chen rushed to the Devil Clan's supreme sect to ask for people, it was very likely that he would not be able to find her parents. Instead, he would be attacked, injured, or even killed. With these 2 points superimposed, Tang's concern for Xiao Chen overshadowed Tang's impulse to find her parents immediately, so she persuaded Xiao Chen to give up this idea. Xiao Chen could not persuade Tang, so he had to choose not to go to Open Heaven Gate for the time being. Instead, he returned to the Jia family and asked Jia Huoyan for information. Although Jia Yubian had been killed by him, Jia Huoyan, as his son, should also know some inside information. Riding the flying sword back to the Jia family, Xiao Chen did not care about going back to Jia Muzin's courtyard. Instead, he rushed into Jia Huoyan's room and directly asked Jia Huoyan, who was still lying on the hospital bed. However, what made Xiaoqin feel helpless was that Jia Huoyin, this trash, actually didn't know anything. His understanding of his father was not as deep as Xiaoqin's. No matter what Xiaoqin asked, he just lay on the bed and stared blankly. Furthermore, he even looked sickly. Seeing that Jia Huoyin really didn't know about his father's situation, Xiaoqin gloomily gave him a beating. Then he searched his and Jia Yubian's room, but he still didn't find anything. It could be seen that all the evidence that could prove that Jia Yubian was related to Awakening Heaven sect had long been completely destroyed. After thinking hard for a long time, Xiaoqin thought of another way. Maybe he could find some clues on Jia Yubian. At that time, Jia Yubian rushed into Jia Muzin's courtyard and was killed by the biohumans around Elder Qin. He should still have some things on him, such as his mobile phone. Maybe the whereabouts of Tang Tang's parents were hidden in it. Thinking of this, Xiaoqin immediately took Tang Tang to find Jia Muzin. He remembered that Jia Jinyan had arranged for him to clean up the courtyard at that time. Xiaoqin intended to ask Jia Muzin how he dealt with Jia Yubian's body and relics at that time. Muzin, I have something to talk to you about. Xiaoqin had just walked into the courtyard when he saw Jia Muzin walking out of the room. He quickly went up to him. Hey Xiaoqin, Tang Tang, you're back? I was just wondering if I should wait for you guys for dinner. I didn't expect you to come back so fast. When Jia Muzin saw Xiaoqin and Tang Tang, he immediately smiled happily. Muzin, let me ask you, when Turtle Whip threatened you after he was killed, where did you put his body? Xiaoqin didn't bother to exchange pleasantries and immediately asked. What? Jia Yubian's body? Jia Muzin was confused by Xiaoqin's sudden question. After thinking for a long time, he said with uncertainty, I didn't see his corpse at that time. You didn't see him? Then who did it? Xiaoqin was slightly startled and asked again. This you wait. When Jia Muzin saw Xiaoqin's nervous look, he also became a little more serious. He called several servants at that time and asked them one by one. As a result, they all said that they didn't see it. Could it be that someone forgot after cleaning up? I don't know where his things and body were thrown to. Xiaoqin frowned. This should be impossible. Jia Muzin gradually recalled the situation at that time and said with a very sure tone, I was the first to come out at that time. The two black clothes were still there, but Jia Yubian's body had disappeared and was not in the courtyard. If it was cleaned up by the servants, they wouldn't just clean up the body and ignore the other things. This is a bit strange. Xiaoqin's eyebrows were tightly locked. He didn't expect that Jia Yubian would be missing and his body was not found. Isn't this situation too strange? When Jia Yubian died, was there anyone else around? Tang Tang stood at the side and asked tentatively. Yes, Elder Qin of Open Heaven Gate and the group of cyborgs were there. However, I killed all the cyborgs and only let Elder Qin go. Xiaoqin nodded and suddenly said to himself, could it be that Elder Qin took away Jia Yubian's body? But, what use did he take away the body? Xiaoqin paced back and forth and kept thinking in his heart. If he just didn't want Jia Yubian to expose himself, he could have just taken away his mobile phone and related information. Was it necessary to take away the body as well? Could it be that Elder Qin was a necrophiliac? After thinking for a moment, Xiaoqin concluded that other than pointing the spearhead of suspicion at Open Heaven Gate, he couldn't sum up any useful clues. However, no matter what Tang Tang said, she didn't agree to let him go to Open Heaven Gate without permission. Xiaoqin had no choice but to temporarily give up the idea of going to Open Heaven Gate to investigate for clues. The night passed uneventfully. Early the next morning, Jia Muzin, Xiaoqin, and the others packed up and set off for the Venerable Realm. Originally, they weren't supposed to set off on this day. However, Xiaoqin's matter had come to an end for the time being, and there wouldn't be any other problems in the short term. Anyway, they had nothing to do in the Jia family, so after some discussion, they decided to set off a day earlier. This time, apart from Jia Muzin, Jia Tuyao, and the other members of the Jia family would also go with them. According to the rules, when entering the Venerable Realm, every family could send a Venerable to hold the line and protect their companions. Originally, Jia Tuyao's father, Jia Yuto, planned to go with them to protect his son. However, because of Jia Muzin, Jia Jinyan directly rejected Jia Yuto's suggestion and chose to let Xiaoqin go with them. Although Jia Yuto was unwilling, he couldn't do anything about it. After all, he could only listen to the words of the Jia family's master. Xiaoqin and the rest boarded a bus in front of the Jia family's residence. After driving in circles for a long time, Qing Menjing and the rest went from being excited by the novelty to being in a daze out of boredom to closing their eyes and dozing off. The bus finally arrived at a pier. Stop the bus. As soon as the bus drove to the pier, a few guys dressed as martial artists suddenly appeared on the side. They waved flags and quickly put down roadblocks, blocking the way forward. One of them shouted at the bus, "One person get off. Go to the counter over there to register, then park the bus in the parking lot over there." "Okay, no problem." Jianghu, who was standing at the front of the bus, as the young master of the Jia family, naturally had to take responsibility for this matter. He immediately made an okay gesture, got off the bus and walked to the counter on the side. Who the hell is that Jia Tuyao? Go and help him with his luggage." Xiao Qin stretched his body and pointed at Jia Tuyao. The corner of Jia Tuyao's mouth twitched, but he didn't say anything. He nodded silently and asked the driver to open the door of the luggage compartment. Then he got off the bus and walked over. Chapter 1168. Looking into the luggage compartment, Jia Tuyao was shocked to find that there were over 20 bags of luggage. Among them, there were 12 to 13 colorful suitcases, which probably belonged to the few girls. Ahem, who is that Jia Tuyao? Be careful. Don't lose the luggage of Sister Sour and the other girls. Tian Sour's voice came from the bus. There are some expensive cosmetics and high-end clothes in there. If Sister Sour finds anything missing, I will ask my husband Xiao Qin to beat you up, do you understand? Once she finished, Tian Sour and the other girls got off the bus, stood aside and watched Jia Tuyao carry the luggage with all his strength, talking and laughing without any intention of helping him. The girls all knew that Xiao Qin and Jia Tuyao did not have a good relationship. Now that they had found the opportunity, they were naturally happy to see Jia Tuyao suffer. Moreover, they were eager to see the world in chaos, so they stood at the side and ordered Jia Tuyao around, basically ordering him around like a servant. Xiao Qin watched this scene coldly, but he was a little surprised in his heart. Jia Tuyao seemed to have accepted his fate. Along the way he didn't provoke him in the slightest. No matter what Xiao Qin asked him to do, he did it obediently. It was really unimaginable that Jia Tuyao was so obedient. In fact, although Jia Tuyao seemed to be working hard, he was actually furious. This time he was making his last effort. If he could successfully become a venerable after entering the venerable secret realm, and Jianghu failed, he could still fight for the position of the young master. What was the use of a young master who couldn't become a venerable? Jia Jinyan had to be replaced. He wasn't as stupid as Jia Huoyan and his son. If he openly went against Jia Jinyan, he would be digging his own grave. By the way, Xiao Qin, I just remembered something. After Jianghu finished the registration, he ran over and joined Xiao Qin and the others. He lowered his voice and said to Xiao Qin, "A few days ago, I heard that someone saw a man who looked like your father, Xiao Feng, in the venerable secret realm. But I don't know why he came. You weren't in the family at that time, so I didn't have time to tell you." "What? My father? He was here?" Xiao Qin frowned. Did the conspiracy of Open Heaven sect have something to do with the venerable secret realm? If so, did Tang Tang's parents and Cheng Minjing's uncle also come here? Yes, but they didn't stay for long. I heard that they only stayed for 3 to 5 days then disappeared. Jianghu shook his head helplessly. Xiao Qin's frown deepened. They disappeared in just 3 to 5 days? It seemed that their target was not the venerable secret heaven. But if they didn't, why did they come here? When Jianghu saw Xiao Qin's pondering expression, he quickly consoled him. This information is a little outdated, and it's no longer important. Right now, we can only figure out how to get to that place, then think of a way to find your father's whereabouts. You don't have to worry about those things. Your task now is to improve your strength to the venerable realm as soon as possible. Then, you will be more convincing when you manage the Jia family. After all, I can't stay in the Jia family to help you all the time. Xiao Qin stopped thinking and patted Jianghu on the shoulder. Yes, I understand. Don't worry, I have prepared everything. This time I will try my best to break through to the venerable realm. Jianghu said confidently. Xiao Qin nodded, pulled him further away, pointed at Jia Tuyao, who was working hard to carry the luggage, and said in a low voice, "Speaking of which, this kid has been acting a bit strange lately. I guess he's thinking of some tricks again. From now on, you have to pay more attention to him, don't fall into his dirty tricks." "I will." Jianghu glanced at Jia Tuyao, nodded and said, "This kid has been good at playing dirty tricks since he was a child. He is much smarter than that idiot Jia Huoyan. He always uses others as a tool. It's good that you understand. You should stay away from this kind of evil person." Xiao Qin curled his lips and asked, Where are we going next? Are we just going to stand here and wait? Yes. We have to wait for the people from other sects to arrive and register. Then we can go to the tavern after we have gathered 100 people. This is also the rule of the dock. Jianghu shrugged and looked a little helpless. What the hell? What kind of stupid rule is this? Which idiot came up with this idea? Does he have nothing better to do? Xiaoqun rolled his eyes in displeasure as he looked at the staff members who were giving out orders at the top of their lungs. However, they were in someone else's territory and he was representing the Jia family. So Xiaoqun couldn't just cause trouble. Who else could it be? Isn't it those people from the Venerable Secret Realm? Apart from this dock, even the way to open the Venerable Secret Realm is under their control. I don't want to stay here and waste my time, but I have no other choice but to wait. Jianghu spread his hands and said helplessly, Venerable Secret Realm Alliance? Xiaoqun scratched his head confusedly and said, What the hell is that? It is an alliance established to plan the entry and exit order of the Venerable Secret Realm, as well as the allocation of quotas and the management of public security. Jianghu explained, the members of the Venerable Secret Realm Alliance are selected from all the big and small sects and families in the martial world. They take care of both the righteous and the evil sections. The goal of the alliance is to maintain neutrality. It feels like the warrior guild in the secular world and the outer world. Neutrality? It's not that simple. Xiaoqun snorted softly. Even in the warrior guild there are many factions fighting for resources. The Venerable Secret Realm is a treasure trove. How can the people in the alliance guarantee that they won't be greedy and seek personal gains for themselves? In fact, everyone knows this, but there is no other way. Jianghu sighed and said, After all, this alliance was established because there was a need for an organization to maintain order. It was to prevent everyone from fighting before entering the secret realm. As for greed and selfish desires, we can only turn a blind eye to it. Has anyone from your Jia family entered this alliance? Xiaoqun suddenly thought of this and asked. Our family used to have someone in the alliance, but he is dead now. But the Jia family still has the right to speak, but there is no need to use it for such a small matter. Jianghu explained briefly and then looked around. He approached Xiaoqun and whispered, I heard that the members of this alliance will be replaced every time the Venerable Secret Realm is opened. Recently, the forces belonging to Awakened Sect have increased greatly. When the time comes, they will definitely get the most benefits. Damn. Why is it Awakened Sect again? Everywhere is related to them. Xiaoqun cursed Saduqitian a few times in his heart. He thought that sooner or later he would have to uproot Awakened Sect and eradicate them completely. It could be considered as getting rid of evil for the people. As for the person that Jianghu said was dead, it must be Jia Yubian again. Chapter 1169. Xiaoqun and Jianghu did not have to wait for too long. On the road leading to the port, there was an endless stream of buses and cars. There were people from all sorts of sects and clans, and they were of all shapes and sizes. For a time the dock was crowded with people and cars. It seemed that there were almost thousands of people, not to mention 100 people. However, what was surprising was that these people who came late were quite harmonious. They followed the instructions, parked and waited, and then lined up to register. There was no conflict. Xiaoqun guessed that they were also afraid of the power of the Venerable Secret Realm Alliance. Otherwise, with so many different righteous sects and demonic sects, there must be some grievances and they would have fought long ago. Looking around, Xiaoqun discovered that the entire dock was paved with limestone slabs. Most of them were plazas, and the few scattered buildings were dignified and unadorned. They were elegant and grand, and the bricks and tiles looked very old. It was completely different from the modern style of docks in the secular world. This dock had an antique style. Xiaoqun felt that he had never seen it in the secular world, and he didn't know which hidden master built it. But at this moment, the sound of horns and all kinds of cars destroyed the whole picture. Xiaoqun sighed secretly. He had no idea where these cars in the martial arts world came from. He had observed them just now. These cars did not have normal number plates. Instead, they had the nameplates of their sects or clans hanging on the front of the cars. Even the Jia family's bus was no exception. After distributing the 100 people, the staff of the Venerable Secret Realm Alliance took Xiaoqun and the others to an inn, and then assigned each of them a room. After that, the staff did not stay and left in a hurry. It was estimated that he would go back to lead the next group of people. After putting down the luggage, Xiaoqun first called the children of the Jia family together, and told them to keep a low profile and not make trouble. Then he let everyone go freely. Xiao Qin, on the other hand, brought the girls and Jianghu along, and casually strolled around the pier. He discovered that there wasn't much fun to do. There were only people here, and it felt like some tourist attractions in the secular world during holidays. It was rather difficult to walk. Occasionally they met some cultivators who sold relatively common things, which really didn't attract the interest of Xiao Chen and the others. Suddenly a young voice came from not far away. Have a look, for only 5 spiritual jades, you can be safe and lucky. Xiao Chen and the rest looked in the direction of the voice and saw a little boy holding a small booklet in his hand. He waved it in the air and shouted in a familiar manner, "Big brothers and sisters from various sects and clans, come over and take a look. You can buy it for 5 spiritual jades and you can't be cheated. Don't buy it for 9 or 900 or 3 or 400, just 5 spiritual jades. 5 spiritual jades, you can be safe." Poof. Xiao Chen almost burst out laughing. How did this kind of peddling in the secular world spread to the inner martial arts world? He, Tang Tang, and Cheng Minjing looked at each other with smiles on their faces, and they all remembered the days when they sold breakfast on the morning market street. Hero, are you interested? Only 5 spiritual jades, you can be safe and lucky. The little boy was very sensitive and found Xiao Chen and the others. He immediately squeezed over and vigorously promoted the booklet. Xiao Chen looked at the little boy with interest, who was not even as high as his chest, and joked, "Little devil, what are you selling? Are you a TV shopping guide in the inner martial arts world?" Hey, Hero Cultivator, this is a good thing. How can it be compared with those despicable TV shopping guides? The little boy grinned, held up the booklet and said proudly, "Look, this is an extremely precious guide to the venerable secret realm. With it, no matter if you are at home or traveling or going to a dungeon to kill a red name, everything will be fine. Do you know? What the hell, this thing has a guide." Xiao Chen could not help but laugh and shook his head. "Why don't I believe it? Come, give me one, let me check it." As Xiao Chen spoke, he reached out his hand to take the booklet. To his surprise, the little boy quickly shrank back and stared at him with a vigilant face. "I say, great cultivator hero, are you deliberately here to cause trouble and ruin my place?" The little boy glared at Xiao Chen and held the booklet tightly in his hand and said in an old-fashioned manner, "Can you just look at this thing? What if you are not willing to pay me after you read it? Who am I going to ask for justice? Stinking brat, if you don't show us the guide, how will we know if you are selling fake goods? What if you are just trying to fool us with a comic book?" Tian Shosho also stood up and said with a face full of dissatisfaction, "My husband would never do something like not paying for something after seeing it. Hurry up and show us the book. Don't worry, we are not short of spiritual jades." "Tiske, I don't believe you. Want to read it? Bring me the spiritual jades." The little boy pouted and said angrily. This little boy had obviously been taken advantage of like this before. Seeing that Xiao Chen had the advantage of numbers, he took a step back and was ready to run at any time. Looking at the little boy's backpack, Xiao Chen noticed that there was a large stack of guides to the honorable realm, and the covers were all different. He smiled and pointed at the backpack and asked, "Brat, why do you have so many guides in your backpack? Don't tell me they are all fake goods. Why do you have so many questions? Are you going to buy them or not? If you are not going to buy them, then don't ask." The little boy rolled his eyes at Xiao Chen and pouted. "Of course I am going to buy them. You don't believe that we have spiritual jades, do you? Look, what is this?" Jianghu smiled and took out a small bag, and then poured out 5 pieces of spiritual jades, and spread them out in his hand. The little boy's eyes were glued to it. The spiritual jades were crystal clear and full of spiritual qi. It was obvious that they were high-quality spiritual jades. He raised his head to look at the bag and saw that there were many high-quality spiritual jades inside, and they looked heavy. The little boy licked his lips and a greedy light flashed in his eyes. He quickly stretched out his hand and wanted to snatch the bag of spiritual jades. However, no matter how fast he was not as fast as Xiao Chen's hand. A phantom image flashed by, and Xiao Chen directly grabbed the boy's hand. He exerted some force and said with a dark expression, "I couldn't tell that at such a young age, other than selling guidebooks, you also like to be a bandit and a thief. Do you believe that I won't break your hand when you're so uneducated?" "Ouch, that hurts, that hurts. I won't dare to do it again. Great cultivator, please spare me this time." The little boy was in so much pain that he broke out in cold sweat, and knelt on the ground and begged for mercy. Chapter 1170. Tell me what's the difference between these guidebooks, then I'll consider if I should let you go. Xiaoqin did not let go of the boy's hand. Instead, he stared at the boy coldly. He felt that the boy was definitely a liar. Since he had nothing better to do, he might as well play with the boy for a while. I'll tell you. The boy quickly nodded and took out a few guidebooks from his backpack. He placed them on the ground in front of him. The cover of the guidebooks were all written with the words, Honorable Mysterious Realm Guidebook. However, the cover was different. Before Xiaoqin could ask, the boy immediately explained, there are 4 types of guidebooks here. They are handwritten, normal, hardcover, and ancient. Their prices are different too. The one I showed you just now is the normal version. It only costs 5 spiritual jades. Wow, it's just a stupid guidebook. How can there be so many editions? Xiaoqin did not know whether to laugh or cry as he let go of the little boy's hand. He picked up the different versions of the Venerable Secret Realm Guidebook and flipped through them. Xiaoqin realized that the 4 versions of the Venerable Realm Guidebook were all different. The handwritten version was messy and there were many typos. There were even opinion notes for places that the Venerable Realm Guidebook couldn't write. It looked like it took a lot of effort. The normal version was indeed normal. The words were printed neatly and there were no typos. It felt smoother to read. As for the hardcover version, it was thicker. According to the guidebook, it was a map of the Honorable Mysterious Realm. However, it looked a little rough. It was hard to tell if it was a counterfeit. As for the ancient version, it combined the features of the normal and hardcover versions. The only difference was that there were some ancient annotations in between the lines. However, anyone who had learned a little about the ancient language would be able to tell that the remarks were useless after reading it carefully. They were just some notes on the ancient language. If one wanted to explore the sovereign realm, it would depend on one's strength and luck. The entire guidebook was not very practical. If that map was real, then only the map was more practical. After he was done, Xiaoqin knocked on the boy's head with the guidebook in his hand and lectured him, Look, these guidebooks were clearly the same. You actually divided it into so many different versions and took them out to sell for money? Fortunately, I looked at it in advance. Otherwise, my friend would have been tricked by you. There's actually a difference. The little boy scratched his head and pointed at the map in the folder. Look, there's a map of the Venerable Realm in this hardcover edition. Other than the map, what's the difference? Xiaoqin laughed and shook his head. He handed the 4 guidebooks back and said with a smile, Why don't you sell the map to me? I don't need anything else. Xiaoqin did not intend to rob it openly. After all, the other party was just a child. Just now, he wanted to rob the spiritual jades, but it was probably just a moment of greed. It was enough to teach him a lesson. Besides, if he robbed the other party's goods, wouldn't he be the same as a robber? He could not do such a thing. The little boy held the 4 guidebooks and stood there in a daze. He did not expect Xiaoqin to return the guidebooks. He did not know how to react for a moment. Are you stupid? Or you don't want to admit what I said? Xiaoqin waved his hand in front of the little boy and said with a smile, Other than the map, everything else is the same. The handwritten version is just a little sloppy. It doesn't affect the reading. There's a difference. The little boy came back to his senses and quickly put the 4 guidebooks back into his backpack. He then shook his head and explained, Hero, look, I'm selling this handwritten version for 2 spiritual jades, the normal version for 5 spiritual jades, the hardcover version for 10 spiritual jades, and the high-grade ancient version for 20 spiritual jades. Even if there's only a difference in price, it's still a difference. Hero, don't you think so? Xiaoqin could not help but laugh. He did not expect this little kid to be so clever. He was right. There was indeed a difference in price. Ha ha ha. Jianghu, Qing Menjing, and the other girls were also amused. If these words were said by an adult, they might think that this person was twisting words and a bit brainless. However, when it came from the mouth of a child, the effect was completely opposite. Everyone would only feel that he was smart and quick-witted. Everyone was teasing the little boy one after another, but Xiaoqin's expression suddenly tensed up. He sensed a familiar cold aura rapidly approaching where he was standing, and he immediately became vigilant. Since coming to the dock and getting off the bus, Xiaoqin had been maintaining the state of divine sense. This place was mixed with crooks and honest people. It was very likely that there would be hidden dangers. In case someone wanted to harm himself or Jianghu and the others, he could at least detect it in advance and be prepared. Xiaoqin turned his head slightly and glanced at the place where the aura came from. It turned out to be Tang Qianling swaggering over. Behind him was his lackey, Tang Qianqi, who was bending his waist and knees. However, the two of them seemed to be talking about something and did not notice the situation on Xiao Chen's side. Hero Cultivator, do you still want the guidebook or not? If you really want to buy it, I can sell it to you at a 20% discount. What do you think? Seeing that Xiao Chen did not respond, the little boy was a little anxious. He had not opened his business yet. This hero does not look like a bad person. Business should be able to be done. How about this, let's make a deal. Xiao Chen lowered his head to look at the little boy. Suddenly, an idea struck him. He thought of an idea to toy with Tang Qianling. What deal? You buy my... The little boy was stunned. Just as he was about to continue promoting his guidebook, Xiao Chen suddenly pointed at Tang Qianling and whispered a few words in his ear. How about it? Can you do it? After whispering, Xiao Chen straightened his body and patted the little boy's shoulder. After this is done, you can have all the money you earn. However, as a reward, you have to give me a hardcover guidebook of the Venerable Mysterious Realm. Well? The little boy looked at Tang Qianling and scratched his chin. He gritted his teeth and said, Okay. But don't try to trick me. Otherwise, I will go to the Venerable Mysterious Realm Union Association and complain about you. Union Association? What is that? Xiao Chen was slightly stunned. Wasn't it the Venerable Mysterious Realm Union Association? Since when was there an association? Chapter 1171. He was about to ask what the association was, but from the corner of his eye, he saw Tang Qianling getting closer and closer. He couldn't be bothered to care so much. He secretly gave the boy a look, then suddenly knocked him on the head and shouted furiously, What did you say? You actually want to sell such a lousy guide for 60 spiritual jades? Do you really think this young master is a fool? The boy was stunned for a moment, then immediately realized that Xiao Chen was acting. He immediately covered his head and said in a loud voice, feeling wronged, Honorable Cultivator, if you have something to say, we can talk it out. We are doing business, why are you beating people up? Cut the crap. This young master beating you up is already considered going easy on you. Don't you know that I am from the Jia family of the inner martial arts world? Hurry up and give this young master a discount, or I will burn all your lousy guides. Xiao Chen glared and roared fiercely. Just as Xiao Chen had expected, the quarrel between the two attracted Tang Qianling's attention. He looked at Xiao Chen from afar, then looked at the boy. Although he didn't know what had happened, he still walked over with great interest. Oh, I say, Xiao Chen, I didn't know that you could put on airs. You obviously have the surname Xiao, but you insist that you are from the Jia family. When did you change your surname? Don't tell me you married into the Jia family and became a concubine of Jianghu? Ah. Tang Qianling sneered as soon as he came up. Xiao Chen glanced at Tang Qianling and found that the black mist on his body was thicker than before. It was obvious that after cultivating, his power had greatly increased. Qing Menjing also lightly breathed. She must have also noticed that something was wrong, but she cleverly maintained her silence. Other than the two of them, no one else noticed it. Tang Qianling, you just ate shit, right? Xiao Chen dragged out his words unhurriedly. Then he smacked his forehead and said with sudden realization, Oh, I understand. It turns out that the first condition to cultivate the 5 poison secret manual is to first eat some shit, to fight poison with poison. I was wondering why your mouth was full of feces. Looks like you ate quite a lot. Before the pitiful Xiao Chen could finish his words, he felt the flesh on his waist being ruthlessly pinched. Xiao Chen didn't even need to look to know that it was definitely Tian Suruan's doing. After all, she also cultivated the 5 poison secret manual. If he used this to tease Tang Qianling, wouldn't it be the same as teasing Tian Suruan? Looking at Tang, she looked indifferent. She didn't care about these things at all. Anyway, she knew that Xiao Chen said that on purpose, so she just shrugged and looked at Tang Qianling with a strange expression. You. Tang Qianling was infuriated by Xiao Chen's mockery. Originally, he wanted to immediately use the 5 poison secret manual he had just learned to teach Xiao Chen a lesson. However, he did not want to reveal his strength too early, so he could only turn his head and say to the little boy beside him, Brat, did this guy bully you just now? Just say it. I'm the young master of the Tang family. There's nothing in the martial arts world that I can't handle. The little boy looked at Tang Qianling with a pitiful look, and tears kept rolling down his cheeks. He said in a weak voice, Young Master Tang, you came just in time. This guy saw that I'm young and weak, so he wanted to force me to buy the Venerable Secret Realm guidebook, but he didn't want to spend the spiritual jades. He just wanted me to give him a discount. I didn't agree, so he beat me up. You have to be my judge. Venerable Secret Realm guidebook? What's that? Tang Qianling was stunned for a moment and asked in confusion. It was also the first time he came to the Venerable Secret Realm, so he didn't know much about the situation here. Surname Tang, what does it have to do with you that I want to buy the guidebook? Get out of here if you have nothing to do with it. The further the better. Before the little boy could answer, Xiaoqin immediately frowned and waved his hand, pushing Tang Qianling a few steps away. Before Tang Qianling could lose his temper, Xiaoqin turned around and sneered at the little boy. Brat, do you really think that the Tang family can support you? Let me tell you the truth, Tang Qianling is also a pauper. The spiritual jades in his pocket were all given to him by the Jia family. How dare he think that he can afford the ancient Venerable Secret Realm guidebook, which costs 60 spiritual jades? Dream on. What the F***CK? Who the F***CK are you calling a pauper? It's just 60 spiritual jades. Do you really think that I don't have any? Tang Qianling, who was labeled as a pauper, was furious. He waved his hand and ordered Tang Qinchi, hurry up, take out all the spiritual jades you have, and let this country bumpkin Xiaoqin have a good look. Does he really think that he can do whatever he wants just because he's allied with the Jia family? All right. Tang Qinchi immediately took out a cloth bag and poured out dozens of high-grade spiritual jades. He waved them in front of the little boy and said with a faint smile, "Little boy, look carefully, these are the best spiritual jades. There are more in this cloth bag, enough to buy the Venerable Secret Realm guidebook." The little boy's eyes lit up. He immediately took out the ancient Venerable Secret Realm guidebook and presented it to Tang Qianling with both hands. He then said excitedly, "Wow! So many spiritual jades. Tycoon Tang, please ride on my coattails." That's more like it. I've already ridden on your coattails, but I can consider riding on your coattails. Tang Qian glanced at Xiaoqin in a threatening manner before receiving the martial Venerable Secret Realm guidebook in a pleased manner. However, before he could flip through a few pages, Xiaoqin reached out and snatched it away. Wait. Xiaoqin held the guidebook tightly in his hand and said disdainfully, "This is the only ancient Venerable Secret Realm guidebook left, and you want to buy it for 60 spiritual jades? Don't be silly, okay? Little boy, I'll pay 70 spiritual jades for this guidebook." Tang Qianling's expression changed. After reading a few pages of the guidebook, he didn't think it was worth as much as 60 spiritual jades. However, Xiaoqin's action of snatching the guidebook made him feel a little strange. In Tang Qianling's opinion, Xiaoqin was definitely not a fool. On the contrary, he was very smart. He must have discovered some secrets in the guidebook, which was why he tried to snatch it away and even paid a high price for it. Little boy, is this really the only ancient Venerable Secret Realm guidebook left? Tang Qianling asked the little boy. Yes, this is the only one in my bag. The little boy rolled his eyes and nodded immediately. He then said with an honest face, Hero Xiao didn't want it at first, but after reading it once he decided to buy it. However, he thought it was too expensive and asked me to give him a discount. What happened next? Tycoon Tang, you know. Chapter 1172. The little boy was not lying about this. He had many different versions of the guidebook at home. However, the ancient version was too expensive and did not sell well. Every time he went out to sell it, he would only bring one copy. Therefore, he only had one copy left in his bag. Isn't it just 70 spiritual jades? I'll pay 80. Kid, go get that guidebook. I'll buy it. Tang Qianling thought for a moment and said resolutely. His eyes were still fixed on the guidebook in Xiaoqian's hand. Tang Qianling concluded that there must be a secret in this guidebook. He must snatch it from Xiaoqian's hands no matter what. However, he did not dare to take it himself. The shadow of being beaten up by Xiaoqian was still fresh in his mind. He was afraid of being beaten up again. Therefore, he could only order the little boy to go. Anyway, he was protected by the Honor Mystic Realm Union Association. Xiaoqian would not dare to do anything to him. If he were to hit Xiaoqian, he would have to pay for it. I'll pay 90. I don't believe that you, Tang Qianling, have more spiritual jades than I do. Xiaoqian said with a look of disdain. I'll pay 150. Tang Qianling roared. I'll pay 200 spiritual jades. I'll pay 250. I'll pay. Xiaoqian was about to raise the price. However, Jianghu pulled his clothes and said in a low voice, Xiaoqin, I don't have that many spiritual jades. Don't raise the price anymore. It's enough. This. Xiaoqin looked hesitant. He held the guidebook tightly in his hand and did not want to let go. I say, Xiaoqin, don't play dumb if you don't have spiritual jades. Do you really think that you are a rich man because you are from the Jia family? Do you think that you own the heavenly jade mine? Tang Qianling immediately sneered. Forget it. Since this idiot wants the guidebook, I won't fight with him for it. It's not something particularly important anyway. Xiaoqin pretended to be carefree and shrugged, but a trace of helplessness flashed across his expression. He even flipped open the guidebook in his hand and pretended to be reluctant to part with it, as if he was trying to memorize the contents inside. What the hell are you looking at? You poor bastard, did this young master allow you to look? Seeing this, Tang Qianling became anxious. He hurriedly strode forward and snatched the guidebook. He carefully put it away and then waved his hand at Tang Qianqi, indicating for him to give the 250 spirit jades to the little boy. Yeah. Young Master Ling, are we really going to give all the spiritual jades to this brat? Tang Qianqi clutched the bag of spiritual jades with a pained expression on his face. They had only brought 500 spiritual jades with them this time. Who would have thought that they would have to spend half of it just to buy a booklet before entering the mystery territory? Oh, what's up? Tang Qianling, are you planning not to pay after buying something? Could it be that you didn't bring that many spiritual jades with you and you want to dine and dash? Don't buy it if you don't have the money. I'm still waiting here. Xiaoqin retorted sarcastically. Tang Qianling glared at Tang Qianqi and said impatiently, why are you talking so much nonsense? Hurry up and pay the spiritual jades. What are you dilly-dallying for? Are you happy to be scolded for nothing? Tang Qianqi had a bitter expression on his face. Although he was extremely unhappy and doubted the authenticity of the guidebook, he still counted 250 spiritual jades and handed them to the little boy. Wow. Thank you, boss. The little boy received the large pile of spiritual jades and held them in his arms happily. He lowered his head and counted them impatiently. Ah, Xiaoqin, I'm taking this treasure. We'll never meet again. Tang Qianling held the guidebook tightly in his arms and looked at Xiaoqin and Jianghu triumphantly. Then he swaggered away with Tang Qianqi. Idiot. You really treat the guidebook like a treasure. Let's see how you die. Xiaoqin did not care about Tang Qianling's gaze before he left. He looked at Tang Qianling's disappearing figure and curled his lips disdainfully. He turned to the little boy and said, how was it? You've earned quite a lot today. Shouldn't you give me my reward? The little boy was still immersed in his own world. He was grinning from ear to ear as he counted the spiritual jades repeatedly. He had really earned a lot today. Just this transaction alone was enough for him to live on for many days. Hey, my husband is talking to you. You little rascal, why are you even more of a money grubber than Sister Sour Sour? Tian Sour Sour said unhappily. Oh, right. I still owe you a guidebook. Hearing Tian Sour Sour's complaint, the little boy stopped as if he had just woken up from a dream. He casually took his backpack and placed it in front of Xiaoqin. He said cheerfully, Cultivator hero, take whatever you want. You can take as many as you want. Oh, I only need a hardcover guidebook. I don't need anything else. Xiaoqin bent down to pick up a hardcover guidebook. Suddenly, he thought of something and asked curiously, oh right, what's that alliance association you mentioned just now? Sounds awesome. What does it have to do with the Venerable Secret Realm Alliance? It's related. The little boy nodded and explained logically, the Alliance Association is a unit directly under the Venerable Secret Realm Alliance. It is also an organization formed by the large families and sects in the martial arts world. The Alliance is mainly responsible for a series of tasks when the families and sects enter the secret realm. The association is responsible for the order of the docks and the overall arrangement of the merchants here. So complicated? They have to divide this into two. Xiaoqin frowned and muttered, I think it's to make more money? Sho. Don't talk nonsense. The little boy immediately became nervous. He looked around and made a shushing gesture. The Alliance Association is fine. The cultivation of us merchants is generally not high, so we are easily bullied by cultivators. There are many masters in the Alliance Association. In order to prevent this kind of situation, we are willing to pay. Are you serious? There are really people who cause trouble at this docks? Xiaoqin was a little surprised, But then he thought of the little boy's vigilant look just now. He must have experienced this kind of experience before. Yes, I've encountered it before. Fortunately, after the association, this situation is much better. The little boy spoke methodically like an adult. After he finished speaking, he even stood on his tiptoes and patted Xiao Chen's shoulder. He said in a mature tone, "But don't worry, as long as you don't mess around, they won't take the initiative to cause trouble for you." Xiao Chen was amused again. However, seeing that this little boy came out to do business at such a young age, he must have been forced by life. Xiao Chen rubbed his hair and nodded with a smile. "All right, thank you for telling me. I understand. I'll take this guidebook with me for free." Chapter 1173. After bidding farewell to the little boy, Xiao Chen handed the guidebook to Jianghu and told him to put it away. He looked up and saw that it was getting late, so he prepared to bring the group to find a place to eat. After walking for about 10 minutes, Xiao Chen and the group finally found a restaurant. The business here seemed to be quite good. Many cultivators were waiting in line at the entrance with their number tags. However, everyone was quite well behaved and there was no act of cutting the line. Xiao Chen and the girls discussed for a while and felt that there shouldn't be any good restaurants nearby, so they might as well choose this place for dinner. After discussing, Xiao Chen also went to the counter to get a number tag. However, this number was already at the back of the line, and there were still many people waiting in front of it. Xiao Chen had no choice but to wait. Since this restaurant's business was so good, the food should be quite delicious. In the same restaurant, Yu Dongxing was eating at a table near the corner. He raised his head and saw Xiao Chen getting a number tag at the counter. He turned to Tang Qianling and asked, "Qianling, those two people look quite familiar. Are they Xiao Chen and Jianghu?" "No way, what a coincidence." Tang Qianling turned his head in surprise and found that it was indeed Xiao Chen and Jianghu. At this time they were standing outside and chatting casually. There were also a few beautiful girls standing beside them, attracting many envious gazes. Tang Qianling smacked his lips and sneered, "It really is them. This kid suffered a loss in my hands today. I didn't expect to meet him here again. TSK, and he has to wait in line for a long time. I think he's going crazy with anger." What do you mean? Xiao Chen looks quite smart. How could he be fooled by you?" Yu Dongxing felt a little strange and asked with a smile. If Tang Qianling was a little smarter, he should be able to hear the derogatory meaning in his words. Yu Dongxing always felt that Tang Qianling's brain was not very good. Apart from being a little smart, he basically had no other good points. However, Tang Qianling obviously didn't hear it. Instead, he drank a cup of wine and said with a proud face, "Hee, I snatched a venerable secret realm guidebook from him. No, to be precise, I bought one. He originally wanted to fight with me for it, but Jianghu was too stupid and didn't bring enough spirit jades. In the end, I easily took the guidebook." "What? The venerable secret realm guidebook? You didn't buy it on the street nearby, did you? Is the one selling the guidebook a little boy?" Yu Dongxing frowned and asked immediately. He already felt that something was wrong. Xiao Chen didn't look stupid. Instead, he was much smarter than Tang Qianling. How could he suffer such a loss in Tang Qianling's hands? There must be something behind this. Yes. How did you know? Tang Qianling was oblivious to Yu Dongxing's doubts. He took out the guidebook and carefully placed it on the table. Yu Dongxing picked up the guidebook and flipped through it. There didn't seem to be anything special about it. "Be careful when you flip it," Tang Qianling warned and said with a toothpick in his mouth. "This is the only ancient version of the guidebook. It has detailed records of some of the more dangerous areas in the Venerable Secret Realm. It even has a map. When we enter the Venerable Secret Realm in a few days, this guidebook will definitely come in handy. That fool Xiao Chen didn't have enough spirit jades and still tried to snatch it from me. Qianling, you've been cheated. This guidebook is useless. How many spirit jades did you spend on it?" Yu Dongxing put down the guidebook and shook his head helplessly. It was just as he had expected. This Tang Qianling was really a stupid pig. "That's impossible, right?" Tang Qianling was stunned. He shook his head in disbelief and said, "I spent 250 spirit jades to buy it." Tang Qianling picked up the guidebook and flipped it open again. Both the handwriting and the map were extremely clear. It didn't look fake at all. "What? You spent 250 spirit jades to buy this lousy thing?" Yu Dongxing was shocked. He looked at Tang Qianling as if he was looking at an idiot and said, "In the past, our Yu clan's elder also bought this kind of guidebook. However, he only spent 50 spirit jades. Isn't it just 200 spirit jades more expensive? I don't lack that amount of money. As long as the quality of the item is good, it's fine. Tang Qianling's heart skipped a beat. However, he still pretended to be generous and waved his hand. However, after our elder bought it and flipped through it, he realized that other than the map, the other notes were completely useless. The key is to rely on one's own strength. Yu Dongxing sighed. He really couldn't bear to expose Tang Qianling's daydream. How can that be? At that time, Xiaoqin really wanted to snatch it from me. He even compared the price with me. However, Jia Muzin didn't have enough spirit jades on him. That's why I bought it first. If this thing is useless, then there's no need for him to waste my time. Tang Qianling still didn't believe Yu Dongxing and argued. Yu Dongxing cursed Tang Qianling in his heart for being an idiot. However, he said, Xiaoqin must have colluded with the guidebook seller to trick you. This thing is really not worth that price. Damn. That bastard Xiaoqin, I'll teach him a lesson later. Tang Qianling was finally convinced. He angrily slammed the table and grabbed the Honorable Realm guidebook, wanting to tear it apart. Wait, this guidebook. Yu Dongxing quickly grabbed Tang Qianling's hand and looked at him hesitantly. Tang Qianling then realized that the guidebook's map could still be used. Tang Qianling angrily put down his hand. He felt that he had lost face, so he fiercely said, "That brat is really too much." He even dared to deceive this young master. Tomorrow I'll smash his stall and teach him a lesson. Qianling, let's forget about this matter. You know how strong Xiaoqin is. Before you become an honorable, you'd better not fight with him directly. Yu Dongxing shook his head and continued to warn him, as for that little rascal who sold the guidebook, don't even think about touching him. After all, you were willing to spend spirit jades to buy the guidebook. If this matter were to be reported to the Alliance, let alone you, even your Tang family might not be able to handle it. Actually, Yu Dongxing didn't like Tang Qianling very much. He also didn't care where he went to cause trouble. However, this little rascal had some value. Moreover, the Yu family and the Tang family had a good relationship. Now that Jia Huiyin had disappeared, Yu Dongxing could only choose to accept a stupid friend like Tang Qianling. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.